In a room with a bunk bed, there is a short-haired blonde guy with an athletic build. He chews his thumb in horror and says that Meryugu and the others, they all died and he had to go with them. He sits on the bed with his head in his hands and again says that this room is safe and under no circumstances should you leave it. There's a knock on the door. The guy reaches out his hand to the door handle. He thinks if they have already returned, this can't happen. He peeks out from behind the door and looks into the distance of the dark corridor, but there is no one there. He thinks he just heard it. He quickly slams the door. He lies in fear under the blanket with his eyes closed and thinks that it's just his imagination that he doesn't hear anything. There is a silhouette of a man behind the door. The door handle moves. Tears appeared in the guy's eyes. He clenched his teeth. He sits down, taking his head out from under the blanket. He asks if this is Meryugu. He says that he has finally arrived. Here he falls silent and opens his eyes wide. He screams in horror. A young guy in a doctor's robe is walking down the street. His name is Meryugu. A girl in a blue dress waves to him with a smile and wishes him good morning. The main character, Meryugu, is a trainee in the surgical department of Lionhua Hospital. He smiles and in return also wishes good morning. Something catches his attention. He walks quickly. A pot with a yellow flower falls to the ground next to him and breaks. People standing nearby think it's this doctor again. Another flower pot is about to fall on his head. He ducks gracefully, mentally counting. All the pots fall to the ground and Meryugu runs away. The guy in the blue shirt looks at the pots in surprise. The main character looks at the sky with his palm out in front of him. He says there were 18 this time. He stands and remembers that his nickname, the Star Offended by God, he was sent to an orphanage when he was a child. Soon the orphanage went bankrupt and he went to kindergarten, and as a result, he also went bankrupt. From the memories of Meryugu, little he stands and cries. While he was growing up, he was haunted by troubles. Accidents, explosions, shipwrecks, but he is still alive and well. He tilts his head to the side and counts on his fingers and says that today is not much. An old man stands behind him and also counts on his fingers. He says that can breaking 18 flower pots be considered murder? Meryugu turns to him with a smile. He scratches his head and says that it's not a big deal and that he should just not pay attention to it. The old man screams and waves his fist. The main character leaves, waves his hand, and says that anyone can make a mistake. There is nothing special about it. He looks at the group of people behind him and thinks that life is letting him down again. He opens his eyes wide. A car is coming at him. Eyewitnesses look at what is happening in fear. The woman covers her mouth with her hands. Meryugu jumps away from the car to the side. He laughs and says everything is fine. Evil eyewitnesses wave their fists and shout that only he considers this normal. The car stops. A fat guy gets out, apologizes, and says that the brakes on this old car suddenly failed. Meryugu exhales and says he's fine. The fat guy thinks he's too calm. Maybe he's a psychopath who stole a doctor's coat and escaped from the hospital. The main character is about to leave. The guy catches him by the hand and asks if he is sure that everything is in order. Can he conduct an examination? After all, he almost knocked him down. Why is he so calm? Meryugu replies that this is not necessary. The guy asks again if everything is fine. Meryugu is interested. Does he need something? The guy scratches his head and says that he is a plumber and needs to fix the sink. Does Meryugu know where the psychiatric ward is? The main character says that he will take him there. They walk towards the hospital buildings. The guy says that Meryugu is the most considerate accident victim he has ever met. The main character replies that it just so happens that he is a surgeon in this department, so they are on the same path. He suggests they go into the elevator since they need to go upstairs. They enter the elevator. On the guy's shoulder hangs an open bag from which papers are visible. Meryugu notices them and reads them. It says that a fire broke out in one of the high school classrooms. This incident claimed the lives of 29 people. The guy asks him how he was able to dodge the car in a couple of seconds. Meryugu puts his hand to his chin. He thoughtfully replies that it happened by itself. The elevator begins to shake. The guy wheezes in fear. He doesn't understand what's happening. Is it really an earthquake? The main character waits wearily for this to finally end. The guy says that the shaking is over, but the light has turned off and he doesn't see anything. A sound attracts his attention. A digital table appeared in front of them on which it was written, "Welcome to the game Global Collapse. The game begins on planet Earth. All players are human." In front of them, the elevator doors turned into a strange gate above, which was the head of a monster with many arms. The spreadsheet says, as a result of the test, it was revealed that 99% of people in this world do not meet the biological standards of the universe. The purpose of this game is to help people evolve. Planet Earth is the site of a large-scale survival game. There will be a huge number of tickets throughout the game. Players must go to the ticket counter and use their tickets to improve their stats and so on. The guy looks at the sign in surprise. Meryugu says that the survival game is quite entertaining. The guy reads out loud that in the dungeon, the death of the player will not be real. In this case, the players will lose certain items, including earned skill points and so on, but the pain in the game will be felt as real. If the permissible pain threshold is exceeded, the person may fall into a coma. Meryugu listens attentively and thinks why he doesn't have words about real death. He stares intently at the table in front of him. He thinks about whether this means that all the players in this game except me will not die for real. The main character presses the key to enter the game. He believes that he will go crazy from such a life. There are other signs spinning around him. He asks if this guy is here. A table appears right in front of his face on which it is written, "Welcome to the game Global Collapse. Information about the game is being processed. Please wait, the information processing process is over. This is your first entry into the game. Please create your character. Enter the player's name." Meryugu looks surprised and extends his hand forward. The table says, "Enter player name, Daddy Increase. This name is already in use." He scratches the back of his head in disappointment. After successfully selecting a name, the player's characteristics will be scanned. The main character put one hand in his pocket. A red holographic net enveloped him. The scan is completed. The player's characteristics are recorded. Please select the default clothing. Naked, Tsukimizu, current clothing. 3 Meryugu in the suggested skins. The spreadsheet says, "Character creation is complete. The game begins. Please get ready to listen to the rules of the game." Immediately after the game starts, along with the rules, players around the world will be forced to use their tickets. Meryugu says that it seems that everyone gets the first ticket, regardless of whether they want it or not. All that remains is to enter the game. He scratches his head with a smile and says it was not. He goes to the wide, rusty doors. Meryugu says that this place is kind of abandoned. He stops at the cash register window, looks in different directions, and says that there is no one behind the cash register, which means the portal must be somewhere nearby. In front of him is a huge gate above, which is the head of a monster. Meryugu is surprised if this is really a portal. Dark breath comes out of the head's mouth. The main character receives a notification from the system. It says, "In addition to regular tickets in the game, there are also special copies that can be activated even if there is no ticket office nearby. But it is difficult to get such a ticket. There are single and group tickets. If you want to form a team, please request a group of tickets. If you want to play solo, please request one ticket. The ticket allows you to obtain special items that appear in your inventory after passing the ticket counter. The level of tickets varies from 1 to 10 stars. The higher the level, the higher the difficulty of obtaining. The reward corresponds to the difficulty level." Click on the button Characteristics to view your characteristics. He presses the key Characteristics. The table says, "Characteristics, name, Meryugu, gender, unknown, age, unknown, game number, 1, special items, none, current points, 0, number of tickets, 0, endurance, unknown, speed, unknown, physical strength, unknown, intelligence, unknown. Nickname, Star Offended by God." He says this is strange. At the same time, this phrase is said by a young man with a wide smile who stands behind him. Meryugu screams in fear and turns around. A man with brown hair wearing a white shirt and a striped vest. He says that he is an usher, it is he who is responsible for distributing tickets. After each phrase, he asks you to come up and hit him. The ticket attendant holds out a yellow ticket with a smile. He asks the main character to take it. Murloc punches him in the face. The ticket taker's nose is bleeding. With a smile, the main character says that they met for the first time, and he repeats the same strange request. He looks at the ticket. It says, duplicate entry ticket, single-use player, Murloc, player number, 1, game type, solo, ticket level, low. The ticket attendant placed his palm on the impact site. He shouts that this is just his text and that Murloc should take his ticket and leave. The main character puts the ticket into the receiver. He says that in that case he is leaving, they will see each other later. The ticket collector shouts in tears that after this, no one will want to see him. Murloc stands in front of the open gate. He steps into them and falls down screaming. He lands on a hard surface as several passers-by look at him. Murloc says it was painful. The system table glows in front of him. It says, Simulation. College of Evil Spirits. A year ago, an entire class died in an accident. After the incident, 29 children, turning into evil spirits, began to wander around the school, and over time the school was abandoned. But even a year later, people continue to hear the terrible and desperate screams of the dead schoolchildren. Number of players 6. Your mission. Pretend to be the teacher of these 29 children. I will also find out the whole truth about the terrible incident that happened a year ago. Friendly reminder, hide the fact that you are a living person. Reward for completing the mission. Game Volt 10. Free attributes 1. Lottery ticket 1. He looks away. The main character looks out of the broken window of an abandoned school. He says that this is really a simulation. It can't be distinguished from reality. The building has been abandoned a long time ago. He holds his tailbone, which hurts from the blow. A guy, a plumber, with whom he was in the elevator together, approaches him. He pressures that Murloc is also here. The guy takes him by the shoulders and fearfully says that this is a simulation and they need to pretend to be ghost teachers so that they don't realize that they are real people. Murloc looks at the electronic sign in front of him that says, Fat Man surnamed Van. Van says he wants to go home. Not far from them stands a guy in a black suit. The main character looks at him. The guy in the glasses and suit is called Shoe Change. Murloc remembers that this is his childhood friend. He remained as arrogant as before. Short-haired blonde guy Gulai put his hand to his chin. He thinks his legs have failed him. An older woman with curly dark hair, Ko Honshu's mother, covers her nose and says that it stinks a lot. Teenage girl with purple hair and panda hairpin Sisson Binlin holding her head. With horror, she says that she does not want to participate in this, she wants to go back. Shoe Change adjusts his glasses and says that he advises everyone to keep calm. Even though they got into this strange simulation at the beginning of the game, it was said that this would help people evolve, so now they better find a way to complete the task. Everyone is looking at him. He puts his hand to his chin and says that most likely there is chaos in the real world now. If they find tickets, this will give them an advantage and a chance to survive in the real world, so it's better to keep one phrase in mind, the survival of the fittest. He crosses his arms and continues to say that the purpose of the mission is to pretend to be teachers in front of these children and let them know that they are not ghosts. Gulai asks what will happen if they are discovered. Shoe Change replies that the information about this was not in the main mission of the game, but in a friendly reminder, so if the ghosts reveal the truth, the mission will not be considered a failure and the game can continue. Since they are new teachers, he offers to find out what subjects need to be taught. Gulai sits on his haunches and asks whether they themselves must choose or everything is predetermined. Shoe Change suggests that there may be clues in the staff room. Murloc turns around. Behind him is an empty, dark corridor. He wonders if it was an illusion. Murloc opens the door to his office. Textbooks lie on wooden tables, each with a name plate hanging above it. Murloc takes up the student of politics under his name. Shoe Change says he got biology. The main character looks at him, scratches his head, and says that they deliberately put inappropriate objects. Gu Lai got history, Mother Ko Hanshu got math, Sisin Binlin got English, Van got physical education. Mediugu says that all the items were chosen in the wrong way. Shu Change goes to the table by the window and says that there is another teacher here. There is a literature textbook on the table and the name Xiaoban is written above it. Van says he doesn't know anyone with that name. Shu Change holds a book in his hand and says there are only 6 players and perhaps Xiaoban is the real teacher in this school. Mediugu crosses his arms and suggests that if her name is here, then she should come too. Shu Change suggests leaving this question and reviewing the lesson schedule. Mediugu reads and says that today is Monday. According to the schedule, today physical education in the gym starts at 8 and lasts 45 minutes. Van is nervous and doesn't want to go to class. Mediugu pats him on the back and says that he doesn't have to go, but in that case he can. Van is scary. Mediugu winks at him and tells him that he is nearby. Shu Change holds a sheet with a schedule and says that in the morning there will be 2 physical education lessons with Van and politics with Mediugu. After lunch there will be a history lesson with teacher Gu Lai. The rest have no lessons today. The door to the office opens, everyone turns around. A boy in a tracksuit with a creepy smile stands in the doorway. He is a testament teacher. Mediugu takes a chair at Xiaoban's table and tells him to come over. The boy bows and says that his name is Liu Lai. He is the head teacher of the 2nd grade of the 4th room. He came to remind the physical education teacher that the lesson is about to begin. Suddenly, he opens his eyes wide and turns to Mediugu. He says that he is sitting in Xiaoban's place. Mediugu replies that this is what he means. The boy asks who will be the physical education teacher. Van scratches his head in confusion and says that it is him. The boy puts a multicolored notebook on the table and says that he brought him a workbook for the lesson and that Van should not be late. Liu Lai goes to the door. He takes one last look at the new teachers. The main character notices that Liu Lai is worried about Xiaoban. Shu Change reasons that maybe she has something to do with the accident that sent them all off a couple of years ago. He wonders if she will appear in the simulation. Van contacts Mediugu with a question about where the 4th office that Liu Lai spoke about is located. Mediugu replies that if first-year students study on the 1st floor, then most likely second-year students study on the 2nd and 3rd. Van scratches his head and says that in that case he will go and look for their office. The main character says that the 2nd lesson will be politics, and he will find it as soon as the lesson is over. Shu Change hopes that nothing will happen during the 1st lesson. Mediugu opens his desk drawer and a piece of paper catches his eye on which it is written, "Love is the best form of education." Shu Change says that to get out they need to complete the mission or die. The main character gets angry remembering that everyone except him has written about this. Van walks along the school corridor and steps on something. He screams in fear and raises his leg. He looks down in horror. He doesn't understand where the dead rabbit came from here. Voices call out to him from behind. He turns his head tremblingly. Liu Lai stands with a creepy smile and says that he needs to come here. He is standing at the door to one of the classrooms. Van opens this door. The students in tracksuits stare intently without blinking. They sit at their desks and smile creepily. Van thinks that this will end quickly. He trembles with fear and, closing his eyes, begins to say that physical education is needed to train the whole body. During lessons, students perform various exercises. Lessons contribute to team cohesion, and if anyone has contraindications, they can. Liu Lai interrupts and addresses him. He sits at his desk with his hand raised and says that the lesson is too boring, it's better to play a game. Van asks what game he wants to play. Liu Lai says that he wants to play a storytelling game. You can start with those who are sitting on the last desks. Everyone should tell their creepy memory. Each next one should be worse than the previous one. Van is sweating profusely as he reflects that his worst memory is happening right now. Liu Lai points back and says that the last desks in the right row can start. Van fearfully says that he needs to teach the lesson first and then tell the stories. Liu Lai turns and says that they should start telling the story. Another boy scratches his head and says that one day he and his friends dropped 5 yuan to buy a soda the next one. Van says that stealing is not right, and they shouldn't do that anymore, and since this is the end of the story, they can go back to the lesson. A boy with long black hair begins to say that she doesn't like her new little brother, so she secretly drew his face with a marker, and he told his parents that his brother drew it himself. Another student goes on to say that he hates furry things, but his aunt's dog kept rubbing against him, and he fed her a chicken bone. Another student says he didn't like one girl who looked after rabbits on their campus, and then he told one that when she found rabbit eyeballs in her closet, she stopped going to school. Another boy says that the neighbor's cat gave birth to several kittens. They constantly sneaked into the house to steal food, so his sentence breaks off. In front of Van lies the mutilated bodies of tortured kittens. He screams in horror. He thinks that all these children are monsters. They are young, but are already doing terrible things. Leo Lai asks if he's okay. Van nods. The boy says that then we need to continue. Hands push the girl down the stairs. Her body lies on the floor. The boy says that the 5 yuan they stole belonged to a high school girl, and when she came to investigate, he fell silent. Another says he can't bear his little sister. One day his parents weren't home. Silhouette suffocating a baby with a pillow. Another boy interrupts him and says that his grandfather annoyed him a lot. He was constantly in his house. The corpse of an old man lies on the floor. Van clenches his teeth angrily. He wants them to stop. All voices fall silent. He hopes they are finished. The whole class stares at him and says it's his turn now. Leo Lai says that if he has nothing to tell, then he is different in some way. Van is scared. The class begins to rush him. Van, closing his eyes, shouts that he has nothing to tell. Mediugu is standing at the door. He asks why everyone is standing. Van happily runs towards him, preparing to hug him. Catch him by the collar shoe change. He asks what's going on here. Van hugs the main character's hand with tears in his eyes and is about to say something. Leo Lai interrupts him. He says they were playing a game. Why is Mediugu here? The main character replies that the lesson is already coming to an end. He is checking the situation. Leo Lai stares at Van and says that the teacher is not finished with the game yet and should be given the opportunity to tell his story. Mediugu pats him on the head and says that he needs to listen to the teacher. The lesson is over and he needs to rest. The game can be continued another time. He thinks he really likes games. Leo Lai is surprised. Shoe Change takes Van's hand and tells him to go. They go in the opposite direction from the main character. Van is worried about him. Shoe Change says that he has a lesson now. Everything should be fine. Mediugu has seen all sorts of things in his life. The main character stands in front of Leo Lai. He asks if he is the new politics teacher. He agrees with a smile and introduces himself. Leo Lai asks what Mediugu is most afraid of. The main character leans towards his ear and threateningly says that he must be called master or he will break his neck. There is tension between them. Leo Lai smiles, but his hands are clenched into fists. Mediugu tells everyone to take their seats. It's time to start the lesson. The classroom door opens. The main character comes out of it with his hands in his pockets. Van shouts that there are still 10 minutes left until the end of the lesson. Was he really scared and decided to finish early? The main character says that he was just reading an article in a textbook until he fell asleep from boredom and got tired of it. He throws the textbook on the table and says that he learned something interesting. Keo Honshu wonders what exactly. Mediugu puts his hands on the table and says that the game rules said there were 29 players, but he counted 28. He sits down and leans back in his chair with his hands behind his head. He again says that he asked the others. The students said that the missing one's name is Lai Suen Mei and no one likes her. Van remembers the faces of the students and puts his palm to his heart. He says that they are all bloodthirsty. In his lesson they told terrible stories. Gu Lai stands behind him and crosses his arms and says that they are as afraid of children as possible. Van is just a coward. If he were there, he wouldn't be afraid of anyone. Van shouts at him that once he sees them, will he be able to repeat those words again? The main character looks at them and thinks that I need to be so arrogant, otherwise I might become the first victim. He asks if the children mentioned the missing teacher in their stories. Van denies this. He says that according to their stories, they bullied some girl. Meriugu asks if they were talking about the same person. Van puts his hand to his chin and says that he doesn't know for sure. One of them said that she loves rabbits, so they killed the rabbit. Someone else said that he stole her money, and they blamed her because of this. They then bullied her. Keo Honshu's mother and Sisen Binlin look at him in surprise. They don't understand how children are capable of this. There is a crowd of boys around the girl. Shu Change says that if all the bullying belongs to one girl, then the riddle is easier to solve. They are probably not the only ones who bullied her. Meriugu put his feet on the table and says that's why the girl cursed the whole class after her death. Shu Change says that they have two tasks: to find out who this girl is and what role teacher Xiao Ban played in all this. The main character says that in this case, while they have time, they need to search the school for any clues. Sisen Binlin timidly says that I want to stay in the office. Keo Honshu's mother doesn't want to go anywhere either. Gu Lai says that he has a lesson after lunch, so he will stay. Van says that he will go, but is it possible to unite in groups? Shu Change says that he and Van promised the main building. He turns to the main character with the question, where will he go? Meriugu replies that he will just look around alone. There is an empty green area in front of the abandoned school. Meriugu goes to the fence. He notices a piece of paper on a stone pillar and takes it. It says Wrong City Police Notice. He tries to read what is written on the discs that hang on the notice board outside the school, but he can't see well. One of the fence bars breaks. The main character is surprised that it was so easy. In the office, he asks if the others found anything. Shu Change remembers him and Van standing in front of a huge gate. He says they found a storage area in the attic, but it was locked. It looks like the door has been replaced and there are signs of a fire on it. Meriugu says that this is really just a coincidence. Shu Change wonders what he is talking about. The main character puts a paper on the table and asks to look at it. There's a fire report there, but he says he took it off the schoolyard notice board. The room is engulfed in flames. Children in school uniforms are running around in the fire. Shu Change reads aloud that the fire occurred on the night of November 26, 2008 in a warehouse on the 6th floor, on the roof of the main building. It was obvious that the fire was planned, as traces of arson were found with the intent of murder. Van stands and looks at the document from the side. He continues to read. The number of victims was 29 people, including 28 6th grade students and their class teacher, Teacher Xiao Ban. The police walk around and inspect the fire site. Shu Change adjusts his glasses and says that in addition to the 28 dead students, there was one more who was killed that night. Is this by any chance Lai Suan-mei? The sheet says, a fire occurred on the night of November 26, 2008 in a warehouse on the 6th floor on the roof of the main building. It was obvious that the fire was planned, since traces of arson with intent to kill were found. The number of victims was 20 girls, including 28 students this class and their homeroom teacher, Teacher Xiao Ban. In addition to the 28 students who died, there was one more who disappeared that night. Attached below is a photo of a girl with the signature Lai Suan-mei. Meriugu says that it's definitely her. The report says that she didn't die, but disappeared. Van scratches his head and says that this is strange. In the problem of the game, it was said that there should be 29 children in this case, and there should be 29 dead. Shu Change crosses his arms and says that in this case, there is only one option left. Lai Suan-mei also died in that day. She turned into a ghost, but her body has not yet been found, which means either someone killed him and she turned into a vengeful spirit. It is depicted as a guy pulling a girl's body along the floor by the leg. Shu Change continues her phrase, or she is the arsonist, and everyone who died turned into ghosts and killed her. Lai Suan-mei stands and holds a can of gasoline in his hands. Shu Change adjusts his glasses and says that now he has two theories. Someone killed Lai Suan-mei and she turned into an evil spirit, and she came back for revenge and started a fire. or she is a murderer and the dead turned into evil spirits came back for revenge and killed Lai Su and Mei. The main character says that there are so many ways that evil spirits can kill a person. There is no need to complicate everything, collect everyone and burn them alive, so he bets on the second option. But why then did the spirits hide their bodies after the murder? Van puts his hand to his chin and says that the game is too difficult. What is the meaning of the existence of Teacher Xiao Ban? Meriugu says that it's actually not that difficult, you just need to catch the students, flog them, and ask questions so you can find out everything right away. Shu Change says that the main character can certainly do this, but he doesn't want to die with him. Meriugu asks if they want him to go and get more information. Shu Change is standing at the table. Xiao Ban looks at him and says that he passed by yesterday and the door was locked. The announcement said that the dorm would open after 4 p.m. The main character says that they will wait, and Gu Lai has not returned yet. The door to the office slowly opens. Van hugs Shu Change out of fear. Gu Lai comes into the office. He says that in the morning he saw Van scared, so he thought the students were scary, but after the lesson he realized that they only bully weaklings. When he stood at the teacher's table, everyone focused on the lecture and said nothing. Meriugu approaches him and calls him to the dorm. It got dark outside. The company is walking along the corridor. Gu Lai walks ahead. Then the main character Shu Change, Van, and the girls holding each other. Van says the closer they get, the scarier it gets. Gu Lai turns around and tells him not to make a fuss over nonsense. Gu Lai turns to the main character and says that it seems they will be neighbors. Van stands opposite them and says that he and Shu Change are right next door. If they need anything they can call. Shu Change looks at the door and says that this is Xiao Ban's room, but it is locked. Meriugu comes into the room and says that they will look there anyway. He is standing in a room with a bunk bed. Gu Lai sits down on the lower tier and wipes the sweat from his forehead. He says that this game is too realistic. He really feels tired. Is it true that Meriugu was also scared when he taught the lesson? But don't be afraid. If you are a little tougher, they won't do anything. The spirits react to cowardice. The main character looks out the window. A face peeks out of it. Gu Lai screams in fear. Van comes into the room. Gu Lai holds his head and trembles. Meriugu says that nothing happened. They just saw a face in the window. There's nothing there anymore. He says that you need to be careful. They are always nearby. A boy peeks out from behind a crack in the door. The main character says that you need to be prepared for anything. You need to wait until midnight and then start acting. Perhaps this is how they calculate the movement of spirits. Gu Lai grabbed his legs and asked him to check under the bed in case there was someone there. Meriugu looks under the bed and says that it is empty. He shakes off his robe and asks Gu Lai not to worry. He goes to the door. Gu Lai shouts that it's safer to not leave with him. The main character closes the door behind him. He knocks on the door and asks if anyone is there. He opens the door. Meriugu stands in front of the empty room and scratches his head. The main character is standing in a dark corridor. He looks at the phone screen and says that there is no signal and the friend system is not turned on, so it will be difficult to find anyone, although it is useless to gather them together. He exhales. Meriugu looks around and thinks that Van and Shu Change have encountered something along the way. But first they need to find Teacher Xiao Ban. Maybe he is in this room. The main character approaches the door. He opened it. With his hand he found the switch. The light didn't turn on. He was using the phone's flashlight. Meriugu thinks that the lock was most likely broken. He notices a book on the bed. It says on it that this is a diary. He sits on the bed, takes the diary, and hopes to find something that can help them. The main character takes out a piece of paper from the diary. He reads out loud whether the ghost is cultivating the curse of the soul. The stronger the resentment for how he died, the stronger the ghost will become after death. Placing a curse on his corpse can suppress the power of the ghost and can also prevent him from leaving the corpse a certain distance after 10 years. This symbol will become. At this point, he falls silent. Part of the page is torn off. Meriugu flips through the pages. He reads again that once the silkworm dies, the silk will turn gray and the tears will begin to dry up. The main character puts his hand to his chin and thinks that it is strange that Xiao Ban has records of such important spells. In order to use a spell on someone you need his body, and the body of the person that was burned had to be taken and cremated, therefore only Lai Xuan Mei can be imprisoned to prison with the help of magic. He tears out the page. Mediugu sits on the bed and thinks that perhaps the dead Xiao Ban put a curse on Lai Xuan Mei and she burned herself to death in revenge. She needs to go to another place. Maybe there is something there. He gets out of bed. A ghost's face peeks out from under it and scrapes its claws. The main character shines a phone flashlight under the bed. He sticks his toothy mouth out there. Mediugu kicks her and says it's like an eyesore. He leaves the room and walks down the corridor. Passing by the door, he says that he probably hasn't returned yet. The main character walks further down the corridor with his hands in his pants pockets. He muses that all the surviving students live on the 4th floor and might find some clues or help in their dorms. A shadow runs along the stairs. Mediugu runs up the stairs behind him. When he goes up to the 2nd floor, he looks into the distance of the corridor, but there is no one there. Gu Lai says that Mediugu and the others have already left. He should leave too, but the room is still safe. He hides under the blanket. The floor creaks. He peeks out from under the blanket, hoping to see Mediugu. Gu Lai approaches the door, but no longer hears the creaks. He peers into. There is nobody there. He hears the creak again. He runs away from the door and hides under the blanket. He shouts that he didn't hear anything. He hopes to see the main character. Peeking out from under the blanket, he screams loudly. Mediugu walks down the corridor. He is holding a Sisson Binlin hairpin. He thinks she is also looking for clues. A shadow runs in front of him. He runs after. Sisson Binlin sits on the floor with her head in her hands. She says that Ko Honshu's mother really died a few minutes ago. Sisson Binlin and Ko Honshu's mother are sitting in the room. Sisson Binlin asks if the ghost really won't find them. Someone knocks on the door. Ko Honshu's mother approaches her. A voice behind the door says that Shu Change needs to talk. Ko Honshu's mother looks around the corridor but doesn't see anyone. Above her face is the head of a girl with a crazy smile. Ko Honshu's mother screams loudly. She falls. Sisson Binlin covers his mouth with both hands in horror. The ghost chuckles and disappears. Sisson Binlin thinks that the ghost could not return in this room. She found a place that she thought was safe. She hears something and stands up abruptly, propping up the door. She thinks she's like a ghost. She starts crying. She wants him to leave. A face peers into the window above her head. She's shaking. A ghost passes by. Sisson Binlin thinks that now he can come into the next room at any moment and need to run. She opens the door. A burnt body stands in front of her. It smiles creepily. Sisson Binlin screams and runs away. The corpse follows her. She doesn't know where to go. Sisson Binlin opens the door. She locks it and holds it with her hands. Van says it's cool. Sisson Binlin breathes a sigh of relief as there are others here. In an empty room on the balcony, there is a piece of paper. She picks it up. It says, "They're going to kill me, to seal me away, to trap me in a creepy box next to a disgusting rat hole, to watch and laugh every day forever, to keep me here and torment me wherever, be it in the classroom or the dorm. They can find me. They're right behind." She looks around in fear. Behind her is the face of a corpse. She's screaming. Mediugu runs by and says that everyone is shouting too loud today. Empty corridor. Van turns to Shu Change. He interrupts him by putting his index finger to his lips. The door is barricaded with a table and other things, and someone is breaking into it. The face of a corpse looks out the window. Van screams in horror. The door handle moves. Shu Change says that this is the only room with a lock, and it won't last long. Van asks what they should do. Shu Change takes the blanket and says that the only thing left to do is jump from the window. He ties the rags together. He says there is no difference between jumping from a window and being killed. The corpse's hand breaks the window in the door and reaches inside. She feels for the door handle. Van covers his face with his hands and shouts that the first option is better. He tries to open the window but fails. Shu Change is also trying. Van starts to panic. The corpse's face pokes through the window. It hits the glass, blood splashes. The corpse disappears. Standing in the window is the imperturbable Metayu-gu, holding a wooden stool in his hands. Shu Change opens the door. Van jumps into his arms, but he dodges. Shu Change squats down and examines the corpse. Metayu-gu says that he just saw the corpse standing with the back of its head towards him and his heart fluttered because he killed it. Van lies on the ground. He is surprised that the ghost is afraid of physical attacks. Shu Change says that he better not try. Only Metayu-gu can do this. The main character remembers hitting the usher. Van asks if he has killed ghosts before. Metayu-gu replies that he started doing this when he received his ticket. He asks why Shu Change did not wait for him to arrive. He replies that they are in a difficult situation. He will explain later. First, he needs to look at the evidence that they found before they read it. It was discovered by a ghost. He drops a notebook to the main character and asks him to take a look. They found it before they could read anything. The ghost blocked the door. Metayu-gu takes the notebook in his hands. It says that this is Xiao Ban's activity log. The main character opens it and begins to read aloud. There Xiao Ban writes that he learned that other students often brought Lai Hsien-mei to the warehouse and bullied her. He needs to talk about this with the class. A spreadsheet is displayed in front of him. It says, "Minor mission from now on, you must live another 5 hours in the dungeon. If you do not complete the secondary mission, you will not be able to leave the dungeon. Reward for the secondary mission." Fair play 1. Metayu-gu is angry because he has not seen such a rule before. Usually players cannot leave if they fail the main mission and not the secondary one. He says that the truth will soon be revealed and the game does not want to let him go. He will have to spend another 5 hours here. Van asks, is it because the main character beat up the NPC? Metayu-gu suggests that he do the same. Van refuses because he doesn't have the courage. The main character reads further what is written in the class magazine. Xiao Ban contacted the class and they promised that they would be friends with Lai Hsien-mei. He was relieved. Lai Hsien-mei said that in the evening she wanted to talk to the class. She said that everyone should wait for her in the warehouse. It seems it's time for the students to apologize to her. He turns the page. It says I was wrong many times. Metayu-gu holds the folded sheets in his hand and says that this is enough to find out the truth. Undoubtedly, Lai Hsien-mei was bullied by other students. Her death came after she burned others alive. Shu Change asks if the protagonist means that Xiao Ban tricked the other students into staying in the warehouse and then set the warehouse on fire to kill them. The main character replies that after that, 28 spirits returned and killed Lai Hsien-mei. They glued some paper with a spell on her hidden body, then they continued to torture her. Van says that the students will not stay in the dorm for the night. Most likely they went to Lai Hsien-mei. This means the mission is completed. They will leave the game. He and Shu Change glow blue. Van reaches out to the main character and asks him to be careful. They disappear into the corridor. Only Metayu-gu remains. He quickly looks at the piece of paper in his hand and concludes that the game forced him to stay in the dungeon for another 5 hours because the spirits have awakened, and now it will be even more terrifying to kill him. A girl in a pink shirt and jeans approaches him. This is Xiao Ban. She says that she is also to blame for everything. She begins to cry and says that if she had noticed Lai Hsien-mei's strange behavior and stopped the other students, it would not have ended in tragedy. She promised Lai Hsien-mei to protect her but failed. She sits down and buries her head in her knees. She says that she knew that she was hidden somewhere. She tried but couldn't find her. Every night she hears screams from the classroom, but she can't get into the building. She tried to break the door, but it didn't work. She can only standing outside listening to the heartbreaking screams of a girl who used to rely on and trust her. Metayu-gu says that for their safety and for the benefit of Lai Hsien-mei, she needs to go with him to the building. He takes her wrist and lifts her off the floor. She says she can't get inside. They walk down the street to the educational building. The main character picks up a stone from the ground. Xiao Ban says it won't work. Metayu-gu throws a rock at the window and it breaks. He says that he once broke the iron gate of the school, so he decided that he could open this door. Ominous sounds come from inside. Xiao Ban runs and calls Lai Suen Mei. The main character wanders after her. He looks around trying to find her. He again takes out a piece of paper and reads about how the students want to kill Xiao Ban, attach some papers to her, and place her in a dark box near the mouse hole. They will look at her and laugh. They will ban her forever to mock her. Walking down the corridor, he notices the body of a rabbit on a newspaper on the floor. From the top of the stairs, he hears evil laughter. He remembers Van talking about Lai Suen Mei's love for rabbits. Mediugu runs to class number 4. He opens the door. The main character enters the office and kicks the wooden table. Rats scatter in different directions. He squats down in front of a wooden box. Mediugu opens. There lies the corpse of a woman with a talisman on her face. In her hands is a piece of paper Lai Suen Mei. The main character takes the piece of paper from her hands. He reads aloud. It says that the spell of educating the soul by restraining the offended can still restrain the fierce spirit even after 10 years, but it is not able to completely suppress its power. The spirit has become much fiercer. If you remove this piece of paper with spells, the fierce spirit will come out under control and will break out, by which time the spell will no longer be able to contain it. He hears laughter and screams coming from outside. The spirit frightens the disciples. Mediugu decides that Lai Suen Mei's spirit began to take revenge as soon as the spell was broken. He must find her spirit. He decides to move to the 6th floor. Running up to the stairs, he sees smoke and the light of fire. There is a fire in the corridor. Students are standing in the fire. He puts his hand in front of him and clenches his teeth. Xiao Ban asks Lai Suen Mei for forgiveness for being late as she tries to catch her breath. Lai Suen Mei looks at her and says that she once said that she could not be trusted and should die. Xiao Ban cups her face and says that she shouldn't have believed any of this. She never said such things. She stayed here for several years because she wanted to take Lai Suen Mei with her. Lai Suen Mei looks at her in surprise. The window breaks and flames burst out. Mediugu notices that the fire is not approaching him. Probably Lai Suen Mei realized that it was he who broke the spell. He puts his hand forward and says that the most important thing now is to figure out a way to get out of here. The talisman burns out. A spreadsheet is displayed on which it says, Red Alert. The dungeon, the haunted high school, is collapsing. The map is under unprecedented severe attack. The data analysis has failed. The structure of the dungeon is broken. All players will be forcibly removed from the dungeon in 10 seconds. Please pay attention to this. The countdown begins. The main character closes his eyes and puts his hands forward. He opens his eyes. He stands in the middle of the street. Behind him there is an iron door. He turns to the usher and says that he was only gone for a few hours and she looks 10 years older. The angry usher shouts that she received a notification saying that some player sent from her booth blew up the dungeon, and when this message reached her, she knew that it would be the main character because he was the only one she sent, and then he really left the game. Mediugu says he didn't do anything. The ticket attendant asks what his mission was. He replies that he should have been a teacher, but he learned about the truth of the death of the entire class and also saved a girl who did wrong, solved the problem between her and the teacher, destroyed 28 fierce spirits, and accidentally destroyed the school. The ticket attendant angrily leans against the window in the door and shouts that he probably considers himself an excellent player. All he had to do was find out the truth of why he saved the girl and burned down the school. The main character asks if they can't just fix the data because it's just a game. The ticket attendant gets even angrier. Mediugu begins to suspect something. The ticket attendant stutteringly says that this is data and that he should leave. She doesn't want to see him and that he should never return to her booth. Their reports are reviewed from time to time and she doesn't want her performance evaluation to fail every time he comes. She looks out of the booth and asks what his name is. The main character replies that his name is Mediugu. She hits him in the back and demands that he leave. She slams the door. Mediugu turns around and looks at. She showed the handle of the booth, a sign on which it was written, Mediugu and dogs are not allowed. There has been a serious car accident on the street. Crowds of people are walking around. The main character stands on the sidewalk and says that they were probably forcibly dragged into the dungeons. Notification from the system. He looks at the spreadsheet. The tables say, game account is loading, please wait. He receives congratulations, optional extra points 1, please select the functions you would like to upgrade. Physical strength, unknown, speed, unknown, strength, unknown, spiritual energy, unknown. Game account is loading, game coins 10. Points that will be added to. Functions 1 want to add points to functions right now. Lucky Draw 1 want to start the draw right now. The main character thinks about what the function points are for. He clicks on the plus sign that is drawn opposite the characteristic strength, speed, physical speed. He receives the same notifications in which it is written. Be careful, you are not compatible with this specific feature. Please stop ongoing operations. He gets angry because he can't add points anywhere and decides to see what's going on with the mistake. On the spreadsheet, there is a picture of toilet paper, and it says, "This is what you got from the lucky draw, a roll of toilet paper." Meryugu takes it in his hand in disappointment. He throws it into the trash can and says that this game is quite unconventional. The streets are a mess, and there are many accidents. The main character walks past a broken red car and says that everyone was involved in the game, big changes will happen in the world, his life will be more difficult. He looks to the side at the car, a tree has fallen. He receives a notification that says, Jorg-chu has sent a friend request, will you accept it? The main character clicks on the check mark. An SMS from Jorg-chu says he is at the ticket office next to Meryugu Hospital. The main character looks towards the cash register. People have gathered there. Shu Change thinks that the business brothers have finally got together. He turns to the main character and says that this is a big chaos, how will they deal with it, and it seems Meryugu is different from other players. The main character replies that he should be more careful. If he loses in the game, he will die in the real world. Shu Change suggests going to another place to discuss everything, because it is very noisy here. Meryugu says that his apartment is not far from here, and we can go there. Van calls out to him and waves his hand. He asks to go with them. The main character allows it with annoyance. The three of them approach a multi-unit building. Van says this building should belong to hell. The main character goes ahead and says that few people will choose this place, but it is quiet and pleasant here. They approach a door inside the building. Van notices that Meryugu's door is different from the others. The main character looks at Shu Change and says that he has a good landlord who is afraid of death. They enter the apartment. There is a large TV on the wall. Meryugu holds the remote control in his hand. He says that the cable signals are gone. They cannot receive news about other parts of the world. Shu Change is sitting on the sofa. He says that all of the people were suddenly involved in the game and the internet connection must have been broken. The main character puts the remote control to his chin and thoughtfully says that he remembers there was a radio somewhere. It was given to him by the president of the orphanage. He offers to see if it works. He picks up the radio. Meryugu puts it down and adjusts the antenna. It hisses, and a voice comes out of it saying that Guardian number 1 lost his target 20 years ago. Number 2 is still offering protection. If anyone has received the message, please respond. The radio hisses again. Van doesn't understand what this means. The main character sits on the sofa with the radio and says that if you hit him, it might work. Van says he is very hungry. He will go cook something. Shu Change tells Meryugu that the only thing they know is that the whole world has entered the game Global Evolution. By going through various dungeons, players receive rewards. At the moment they could not get enough information. Does the main character have a plan? Meryugu closes his eyes and hits the radio with his palm. He says that he wants to go into dungeons as often as possible because he was not safe in the original world, and judging by the current situation, he does not think that they will be able to return to normal life. Van puts a plate of food on the table and calls the others to eat. He says that there was a lot of food in the refrigerator. He abruptly falls silent in front of him. Shu Change and Meryugu spreadsheets appeared. They say, "Players, please note. The possessed high school dungeon has suffered unknown attacks and is under renovation, will be unavailable for a while. The The system apologizes for any inconvenience this may cause. Selected players will receive a compensation package which can be collected at the information booth. Shu Change looks at the main character and says that they were sent out of the dungeon before it broke and Mediugu is the only one left there. In front of the main character is another system table on which it is written, "Dear player, please accept our apologies for the inconvenience caused by the dungeon possessed high school. The system also sincerely hopes that you will not do anything that goes beyond the rules in the dungeons you visit in the future, or you can do it, but everything will be only on your conscience." He shouts in rage that this is a threat. Shu Change adjusts his glasses and says that the system offered compensation. If he were the system, he would have beaten Mediugu for breaking into the dungeon. They decide to see what's in the package. A ticket drops out of the spreadsheet. A voucher for a dungeon, a one-time item. The owner of the voucher can select a specific dungeon to enter with his team by writing down the name of the dungeon and the names of his teammates. You can get inside. 100 gain coins. The main character says that the system is quite generous. The more dangerous the game, the better the reward. He picks up the dungeon voucher and says it's a good thing. All three guys are standing in front of the door with blinds over which it says, "Convenience store." Van says they went to a lot of stores, but they were all closed. Shu Change corrects him and says that only one was open, but a bowl of noodles would cost more than $100. The main character walks down the street and says that they need to look on the street. Yesterday was not the best day, maybe they will find something useful. In front of them is a truck with open back doors. There are not many different boxes inside. Mediugu climbs inside. Shu Change adjusts his glasses and says that even if they don't steal things, they still won't reach their recipients. The main character lifts the box above his head and shouts for the others to stop standing and take the boxes. Shu Change says he wants to remain an honest person. Van holds a small box in his hand and says in a trembling voice that the delivery address looks creepy. 9-body freezer on the left on level 7 on the right side of the Huntington Hospital underground morgue. Mediugu sneaks up behind him. Van screams in fear. There are 3 large black bags next to the car. Shu Change says everything is ready now, you can go home. The main character's attention is drawn to a nearby building. A spreadsheet appeared above the guys on which it was written, "Special dungeon activated, test center for hearse drivers, number of players. From 5 to 10, lack of players, random players will be assigned. Loading, players matched, number of players. 7. Mission, each player must obtain a driver's license. Losing players will be eliminated. Rewards. Private hearse license, difficulty level, 6 stars. Van, in a panic, wraps his hands around the difficulty level indicator and says that he recently completed the beginner test. Someone behind them shouts Cheryl Chow's name. This name was shouted with delight by a man in a blue shirt. Above him was a sign with the inscription, "Cold Fireworks." Opposite him stands a blonde in a floor-length purple dress. Mediugu looks at them and thinks that Cheryl Chow is an actress famous for her beautiful face and bad acting. It is not difficult to meet a celebrity in this game. Also standing off to the side are a man with stubble under the nickname How and a girl with purple hair and glasses under the nickname Princess Meteor. Princess Meteor says that she is a failure because the dungeon was activated so easily. Someone shouts, "Welcome." All 7 players turn around. There is a man in a suit with stubble and a smile above him, a sign that says NPC Chi. He says that he is their curator Chi. Although he is a mentor, he will not teach anything. He will only count points. Now they are in the dungeon, a testing center for hearse drivers. There are 2 exams that you need to pass. This is a written test and a practical test. You need to keep in mind that you can only answer the written test from 10 to 12 at night. The rest of the time you can only think about the questions but not write anything. In order to proceed to the next task, you need to score 80 points in the written test. Chi points his arms to the sides behind his back several hearses. He again says that in the practical part, the players will drive these 3 cars behind him. The cars are covered in rust and some of the windows are broken. Chi again says that players rarely encounter this dungeon. They may think that a hearse driver's license is useless. But as they progress through the dungeons, they will realize that this is a great thing. It will be what every player wants. He advises not to fail the tests and not to cheat. He gives another example and says that in some games you will find that the card is mediocre, so it can be torn into pieces for other purposes. But as you go deeper into the game, you realize that the best card you can get in this game is also very rare. Murloc thinks about his words. Chi says that the written test will start right now. You need to go into the building and look for the answers. In this test, there are devilish spirits that will interfere or even threaten your life. He laughs sarcastically and advises you to be careful. In the middle of an empty room, there is a table with 7 chairs and pieces of paper. Players approach him. Chi stands in front of them. Van thinks this place is terrible. Chi throws up his hands and says that he advises not to cheat with plagiarism because everyone's questions are different, but you can talk to each other. He stands in the doorway and says that he hopes they don't die during the exam. With a smile, he holds a chain in his hand. The door slams loudly. Van is terrified that the players might die during the written exam. Shoe change and Murloc walk towards the table. The main character picks up a piece of paper and says that both parts of the driver's license exam are extremely strange. Says, total points 100, 40% multiple choice questions, 20 fill in the blanks, and 40 written short answers. Jorg-Chu holds his piece of paper and reads the task. It says that in the building there are 3 floors with 1 ghost on each. Write about the death of each of the 3 ghosts. Murloc draws his attention to his task and reads it out loud. It says what gender the ghost with the surname Ma is: a male, B female, C neither male nor female, G sometimes male, sometimes female. He leans on his hands and hangs over the leaves. He reads the following tasks. They say that you need to choose the correct description of a ghost named Yan. A the eyes of a dead fish, B a scar on the face, C a big belly, D a long tongue. The next task says that you need to answer how many people in the building committed 1 murder of a male ghost while he was alive. A 1, B2, C3, D4. Now Van reads out loud. If you sing a song praising the motherly love of a ghost who was pregnant woman, how will he react? A will scream like crazy, B will go downstairs and knock on the door, C in no way, D will dance under the moon. He exclaims that option D is definitely not correct. The main character interrupts and says that no matter what he says, he will probably really dance under the moon. Van jumps aside and asks Murloc to stop scaring him. The piece of paper says, a ghost surnamed Zhao died in the car. A ghost with a long tongue kills people. The main character crosses his arms and says that the system seemed to throw out several random questions. Van turns to him with questions. What should they do? Murloc says that you need to look around in this building of 3 floors and you can start from the first. He turns around. There is a photo of a man with a mustache on the wall. All 7 players stand in front of her. Shoe Change says the photos must match the ghosts on the activity sheet. Van hides behind him screaming. The main character with a smile offers to go into the room and find out what is there. Cold Fireworks approaches him and asks him to go with him to see Murloc. The doctor's coat means he is a doctor. Cheryl Chow raises her hand and says she wants to stay with him too. Shoe Change adjusts his glasses. Murloc invites them to be his guests. The main character puts his palm to the door with a photograph. The door begins to open. The players go inside. In front of them, in the middle of the room, is a black coffin. On the wreaths it is written, in memory of the respected master from Gansjan. Photo of a smiling man with a mustache. Van says it looks creepy. Murloc pushes the coffin lid. Van screams loudly and starts to panic. The main character says that he needs help opening the coffin. All players stand over the coffin. Shoe Change asks what did they find there. The coffin is empty. Van asks if they should check the other rooms. It's 7:30 p.m. All players left the room. They go to the door with another photo. Cheryl Chow says this room is similar to the previous one. Murloc puts his hand to his chin thoughtfully. He leans on the coffin and carefully looks at the photo on the wall. Van asks if he wants to open this coffin because last time the coffin was empty. The main character holds onto the lid of the coffin and tells the players to read the text carefully. They can find clues in the questions. Shu Change says that this building has 3 floors with a fierce ghost on each floor. Mediugu says that these 3 ghosts have the surnames Ma, Yan, and Zhao respectively. On the spreadsheet it is written, "What is the gender of the ghost with the last name Ma? A male, B female, C neither male nor female, D sometimes male, sometimes female." Cheryl Chow waves her index finger and says that the questions also talk about a ghost with a long tongue and a ghost being pregnant, probably talking about their types. He sits on it. Shu Change stands nearby and says that they are only allowed to answer questions from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on the 2nd floor. There are more than 100 halls for holding funeral events. If they open each coffin, they will definitely not meet the deadline. Mediugu says that first they need to search the halls marked with the surnames Ma, Yan, and Zhao. This way they will figure out the identity of at least one ghost. Shu Change adjusts his glasses and says that in his test there is another clue. The 3 ghosts knew each other when they were alive. What vehicles did these people correspond to? The main character stands up and brushes off his clothes. He says that 3 ghosts are connected to each other. They will solve the riddle when they catch one of them. Cold Fireworks is shocked by the words of the main character. Mediugu goes to the door waving his hand goodbye. He says that we need to separate and work. Cold Fireworks says in fear, "What if one of them encounters a ghost?" The main character smiles intimidatingly and tells them not to worry, they will definitely run into them. All players sit at the table. Mediugu says that 2 are Ma, 7 are Yan, 10 are Zhao. On the ground floor, there are 3 halls for funeral events, which may relate to ghosts. Shu Change says it's good that they eliminated so many rooms, but they still have a lot of work to do. Van asks the main character that they are really going to open 19 coffins. Mediugu turns around and looks at the rooms. He thinks that opening 19 coffins, even physically difficult, can take more than 1 hour. They haven't checked the 2nd and 3rd floors yet. He gets up and puts his hand on the table. He says that there is no need to open them now. He will go for a walk around. Shu Change says he will go with him and gets up too. They are standing at the door. Shu Change examines the wall. Mediugu asks what he is looking at. Shu Change adjusts his glasses and points towards the room. On the wall of the room hangs a photograph of a smiling old woman. The main character says that the face in the photo resembles a potato. Shu Change tells him to read the inscription. On the wreath it is written, "In memory of Miss Yan from the Yusu City Police." Mediugu puts his hand to his chin and says that in other rooms the flowers were from juniors, acquaintances, colleagues, or directly from work, but this is a different case. Apparently Miss Yan did not work for the Yusu City Police since her hair does not meet the disciplinary requirements. Shu Change comes closer to the photo and examines it. He says that Yan appears to be about 40 years old, and the fact that the police sent her flowers suggests that there are secrets behind her death. Mediugu approaches him and says that according to the task, 3 ghosts respectively belong to 3 types of transport. The paddy wagon belongs to the police. Hao says that probably the criminal who was riding in that paddy wagon somehow escaped and met Yan, who bravely stopped him but unfortunately died. The main character says that to confirm their theory, evidence is needed. Van says he's working too hard to find the ghost. Mediugu puts his hand on his bicep and says that he sees the full picture. He needs to open this coffin. They move the coffin lid to the side. The main character looks inside. The room suddenly became dark. The players begin to panic. Mediugu touches something with his hand. Van shouts out that it has arrived and tries to grab it. It's time to run. The players are screaming. The main character looks at his palm and says that it was a chubby belly. He leans closer to the coffin but cannot see anything. He looks up. Cheryl Chow hits him and falls. She sits on the floor with her hand on her head at the sight of the impact. She asks what happened here. The main character asks why she didn't run away. She looks at him and says that she saw that the main character stayed. That's why she stayed with him. Why didn't he run away? Mediugu says his legs are numb from fear. Cheryl Chow clenches her fist and asks him not to be afraid. She says that she will protect him. The main character asks if she has anything to light the room. She takes out the fanatic and holds it up to her face. The main character asks her to stop. There are papers at the bottom of the coffin. Mediugu takes the papers and shines a flashlight on them. The documents say that on September 23, 2003, a violent murder was committed in Yusu City. A man was found dead in his car. It is believed he was beaten to death by multiple blows to the back of the head with a blunt object. His wallet and other valuables were stolen. A corpse lies with blood on the back of its head. The investigation established that Ma is the main suspect with special characteristics. A 31-year-old man, a resident of Yusu, height 172 cm thin, wearing a blue jacket at the time of the escape, a scar from a knife on his forehead. A man in a blue sweatshirt runs down the street. Now the Yusu City police are hoping that the public will be able to share information about the alleged killer. The one who provides useful information that will lead to the successful arrest of the suspect will receive $30,000. The one who catches the suspect will receive $60,000. The police will keep the personal information of the informer confidential. At the end of the text is a photograph with an identikit. On the second sheet is written gratitude to Yan for the information. It says, "Yan's letter of thanks, we received the information you provided. It was confirmed that the punter Ma did indeed stop at the Longchang department. However, since the information arrived too late, we did not have time to detain the suspect. Thank you for the useful information and hope that you were safe. If you have any, please let us know any questions at any time. Yuzu City Police." Mediugu puts his hand to his chin and thinks that there must be a connection between Ma and Yan. Ma probably ran away after the murder in Yuzu City, then Yan reported it to the police. Ma stabs Yan from behind. The main character reasons that the letter said that by that time, the suspect had not yet been arrested and Yan should be careful. Ma must have found an opportunity to kill her. The police expressed their condolences at Yan's funeral. Now they have some clues about the latter in the test question. Yan died before Ma. He holds in his hand a piece of paper on which it is written, "In this building there are 3 floors. On each of them there lives a ferocious ghost. Please order the death of each of the 3 ghosts." Ma is standing in the hood. His jacket is stained with blood. In his hands he is holding a kitchen knife. Mediugu thinks that if the question is how many people did the only male ghost in this building kill while he was alive, then now they know he took at least 2 lives. But they still need to get some information about the 3rd ghost if they want to get to the bottom of it, the whole story. He says that we shouldn't waste time and suggests going up to the 2nd floor. The main character looks back at the coffin and thinks that Insta says that there is only 1 fierce ghost on each floor. He thought that the fierce ghost is in the coffin, but there are only 2 pieces of paper in it. Maybe the ghost followed someone and left. He and Cheryl Chow leave the room. Yan comes with shoe change and another silhouette. He says that he was very scared, but they were brave and didn't even scream. Shoe Change says that he finds it strange that Van is definitely holding Mediugu's hand. Van says it's really him. He turns and asks why the main character is silent. Shoe Change tells him to get ready. On the system table in front of him, there is an image of a lantern. In front of Van is a Yan spirit with a long tongue. He trembles with fear and screams. 2023. Mediugu and Cheryl Chow walk on the 2nd floor. The main character says that this floor is dedicated to an ambulance, the funeral hall on the 1st floor is related to a hearse, and the 3rd is most likely dedicated to a prison and a paddy wagon. He suggests looking for a nurse's post. They move on. The main character sneaks a look at Cheryl Chow and thinks that she is much better than those noisy players who are easily scared. Strange sounds are heard behind them. Mediugu shines a lantern in that direction. He notices a door with a broken window. Cheryl Chow suggests that she walk backwards and see what's happening behind her. Mediugu refuses and says that he needs to continue searching. She looks at him. The main character walks and irritably thinks that he again feels someone's gaze on him when something bad happens. He looks sharply at Cheryl Chow. He shouts at her to be careful and reaches out to her with his hand. Mediugu grabs her wrist and pulls her towards him. A window falls on the floor where she stood. Cheryl Chow sits on her lap. The main character thinks that the frame seems to have fallen on something. Cheryl Chow tries to remove his hand from her wrist. Metayu apologizes and removes his hand. She offendedly says that the next time he tries to push her away, he should report it. He turns his gaze to the fallen frame. A little smoke flows from under the frame, and the silhouette of a man remains on the floor. The main character thinks that the ghost who was watching them turned out to be an addition to the frame and disappeared. He starts running and shouts that he can't stay here. They are standing in some room. Cheryl Chow looks around warily and says that strange sound has disappeared. Metayu says that it was probably made by a local ghost who ran away after being hit. He holds a piece of paper with a photo in his hand. It says, Obstetrics and Gynecology Hospital, ultrasound report, name, Zhao, gender, female, department, patient number, dead. The main character says that this is the pregnant woman Zhao. She is probably one of these cruel ghosts. According to the test sheet, all three ghosts know each other. They have already found out that Ma committed the murder, and Yan reported them to the police. Zhao was Ma's pregnant wife. It remains to be found out how she and Yan met. He says that they also need to go to room number 59. To bed number 2, he wanted to lure and catch the ghost on the second floor, but an unforeseen situation happened. Cheryl Chow asks, did he really want to catch him? Metayu says there is no other way to find the answers. Cheryl Chow says she's not sure this is the right approach. Dark staircase. Van runs down the corridor and screams. He opens the door. He runs inside and slams it behind him. He tries to catch his breath. He is glad that he was able to escape from there, otherwise the ghost could have killed him. The face of the Yan spirit appeared at his side. He screams loudly. Shu Change grabs him by the shoulder and tells him to run. Van starts to overtake him and shouts that he misses his mom. Shu Change says they will split up and meet on the second floor. They run in different directions. The ghost follows Shu Change. Van notices this. He sits on the floor with his head in his hands. He says that this is a terrible place and wants someone to help him. He remembers the system for calling friends. The system table says, player, name Metayu, number 01, unavailable. He understands that he cannot use the system in the dungeon. Van looks out the window and says that if he jumps and dies, then he can leave the dungeon automatically. He clasps his head again and says that if he doesn't die after the jump, it will be even worse. He can't do this. Why doesn't he just have the right to take the exam so he can get out? He doesn't want to feel pain. A clot of energy appeared at the door. Van turns around. He falls attacked and crawls back. He thinks why the shadow is coming because he is moving backwards. Van froze in fear. He realized that the ghost was behind him. He runs out of the room screaming. Van finally looks back. He is followed by the spirit of a pregnant woman. Van runs and thinks that he needs to hide. The spirit cannot catch him. He runs into the room and tries to hide under the bed in the hope that the spirit will not find him there. He lies under the bed, clutching the hanging covers, mentally praying that the spirit will pass by and not stop. He calls and says that it was close. If he sits here quietly, he can leave safely when the clock strikes 10. A hand reaches out to him from behind. She touches his shoulder. Van immediately falls silent and breaks out in sweat. He looks back. He is held by the spirit of a girl with red eyes. He screams in horror. Another hand reaches under the bed in front. Van looks ahead, not understanding where another one came from. The hand rests on top of the ghost's hand. Metayu says he finally caught him. He smiles. Shu Change is standing on the stairs. He adjusts his glasses. Shu Change goes upstairs. He went up to the 3rd floor. He stands leaning against the open coffin and reflects that Ma corresponds to the paddy wagon. He is a cruel ghost of the 3rd floor. There are sheets of paper at the bottom of the coffin. One of the cameras must belong to Ma. He needs to find her. One of the cell bars is open and a dark aura emanates from it. Shu Change approaches her and examines her with a flashlight. The sign says, Code 042, name Ma. Crime, interethnic murder. Note, released early after 13 years in prison after which he killed a woman with an axe while he was wanted, intended to attack a policeman, but was ultimately sentenced to death. After reading this, Shu Change thinks that the woman he killed was Yan. After Ma was released, he did not forget her act and decided to kill her. But this is strange because the police did not disclose information about the informer. He goes inside the cell looking at the documents. There are more sheets of paper on the bed. He wonders how Ma knew that it was Yan who reported him. Shu Change shines on the paper on the bed. He squats down and takes them in his hands. Someone approached from the side. Shu Change looks away. The spirit Ma, who holds a knife in his hand, is directed towards him. With a wild smile, he swings it. Shu Change dodges the blow with a straight face. He then runs out of the cell. He runs along the corridor, down the stairs, and runs into the nearest room. He slams the door behind him. He pressed his back to her and is relieved that the spirit did not catch him. In his palm lies a photograph depicting 3 people standing together. Shu Change looks at it and wonders what it is. He is holding a piece of paper in his hands. It says, "An advertisement about a resident of this area, Zhao, a pregnant woman, on October 2, 2003, had an argument with her neighbor Yan. During the quarrel, she accidentally tripped and fell. Bleeding occurred, which led to premature birth due to the large loss of blood, both mother and child. Residential District Administrative Office, October 15, 2003. The photo shows Zhao, Ma, and Yan. Shu Change thinks that Ma committed the murder on September 23rd, and the picture was taken a month before it happened. They were good friends. Zhao and Ma seem to be a couple now. Everything is clear to him. He adjusts his glasses and thinks Ma killed someone and hid. The police issued an arrest warrant. Ma didn't want his pregnant wife to worry, so he told her where he was hiding. When Zhao was talking to Yan, she accidentally told information about the place where Ma was hiding. Pictured how Zhao and Yan communicate with each other. Yan, in turn, reported to the police. The police arrest Ma. Zhao found out who the informer was, went to her house and quarreled during the quarrel. An accident occurred without going to the hospital on time. He died in the ambulance. Ma, while he was in prison, he found out why his wife died. He crossed out Yan's face. Cruel hatred arose in him. He left prison and killed Yan. Then he was put in prison again and executed." Shu Change looks at the time. The clock shows 9:50. He adjusts his glasses and thinks that now he has found out the truth, but taking into account the fact that this is a 6-star dungeon, not everything is so simple. There will be an exam soon. He looks at the photo and thinks that it can somehow help. He notices Van and Cheryl Chow walking up the stairs. Shu Change calls out to them. He says that the topic needs a protagonist to talk about what he found. Van says he shouldn't. Shu Change asks what happened. Van replies that Gu just caught a ghost on the 2nd floor. He pulled the ghost out from under the bed, beat him to a pulp, and you tortured the truth. The main character sits over the ghost with a terrifying smile and cracks his knuckles. Van points to the stairs and says that he is sure that Gu is already on the 3rd floor. The ghost has left after being tortured. The stairs begin to move. A ghost peeks out from around the corner. Van got scared. Gu asks what happened, standing behind him. Van shudders and turns around. He hugs the main character's leg and shouts that there is a ghost there. He points his finger at the place where the ghost was, but there is no one there anymore. Gu pats him on the head and says that he is no longer there. He probably got scared and ran away. He turns to Shu Change and says that he thought he was already expelled. Shu Change says that he combined the stories of the 3 signs he was going to tell him, but now he doesn't think he needs it. Gu hands Van a bloody axe. Van takes it and screams in fear. Shu Change asks where the main character got it. Gu replies that he took it from the ghost from the 3rd floor. He tried to kill him with it. Most likely it can be useful in the driving test. He offers to fill out the sheets. The main character opens the doors. They are greeted by Chi. Behind him there are 3 cars. Chi is surprised. He says he doesn't believe his eyes. The players stand opposite him. Chi looks at them intently. Gu smiles. The others look forward resolutely. Chi puts his hands behind his back and says that 4 of them survived. The main character says that it was hard for them, and as for the others, he, Shu Change, Cheryl Chow, and Van enter the main hall. Something attracts the main character's attention. Hao's corpse sits against the wall. His eyes are wide open. He died with his mouth wide open, leaving a streak of blood on the wall. Van hides behind Mediugu asking if he is a meter. Shu Change squats and says that he must have been killed by one of the ghosts. He adjusts his glasses and again says that the other two are most likely dead too. The player won't actually die, but they will still look like lifeless corpses. Chi smiles and holds pieces of paper in his hands. He says 4 managed to survive, but not everyone can start the next round. He looks at the papers and shouts in surprise that they all passed. Chi sadly lowered his head and said that the written test was too easy for them, now the driving test. Players need to choose a vehicle and make 3 laps on it. Chi, as a coach, will evaluate their work while sitting in the next chair. If the vehicle stalls or stops for any reason, the result will be counted as a failure. With a smile, he flips through the notebook, choosing who will take the test first. Mediugu raises his hand and says that he is the first. Chi tells him to choose transport. Shu Change holds a photo of Yan. He advises the main character to take a paddy wagon because if Ma's ghost appears, then the photograph will help to delay him a little. The main character smiles and says that this is not necessary. He has some experience in communicating with ghosts. He remembers the moment when he dragged the ghost of Yan. Mediugu points his thumb at the paddy wagon and says that in this car he will become even closer to the ghost. He heads to the car. Van is worried and says that suddenly something will happen to him. Shu Change says that this is Mediugu's destiny. If something happens to him, the people around him will also go down. He adjusts his glasses. Mediugu and Chi are sitting in the car. Chi smiles and says he can start now. The car suddenly moves away and he is slammed into the back of the seat. He screams in fear. Chi holds onto the armrest with both hands. Mediugu says it's easy. He skids through the first lap. Then the second round. The main character says that if Chi is waiting for a ghost, he will not appear. He says he has finished the test. He asks if he passed or not. Chi thinks in surprise that they didn't meet a single ghost along the way. Van says that Mediugu is already on lap 4. Shu Change says that you need to move away from the car, it is losing control. Chi looks at Mediugu questioningly. He asks why he didn't stop. The main character turns and looks at him with a smile. He says that the brakes are probably broken. The car accelerates on its own. Frightened Chi shouts that this has never happened in this dungeon before. Mediugu thinks that Chi probably knows that he is a local NPC. Chi demands to stop the car. The main character smiles. He says he can't stop her, she's getting faster. He tries to calm Chi down and says that the previous dungeon he played and also had problems, in the end it exploded, but he managed to get out alive. Chi is terrified. He realizes that Mediugu is the same guy who broke the ghost school. The main character takes his hand off the steering wheel. He says that he didn't do anything, he just tore the paper with the spell on it. Chi holds onto the armrest tighter and asks Mediugu to hold the steering wheel tighter. He begins to feel dizzy. He reflects that he thought that the ghost school was not well designed and had a lot of bugs, but did not expect that the main character would be the same bug. The main character says that for their safety, they must stop this car by force. He stares at Chi. Chi fearfully asks what he is going to do. Van, Shu Change, and Cheryl Chow are watching closely. Van pulls the other players aside. A car passes over them. The paddy wagon rotates into 2 other cars. Chi shouts that Mediugu ruined their car. The paddy wagon, all dented, continues to drive. The main character licks his lips and says that he just lost control of the car, he needs to repeat it again and everything will be fine. The car is heading into a wall with a gate. They crash into her. The wheels fly off in different directions. The car is smoking. The door opens. A living Chi and a cheerful Mediugu emerge from it. The main character says that he passed the test and Chi should give him a license. Chi doesn't believe what's happening. Broken cars lie on the ground. Chi angrily says that the vehicles are destroyed, the dungeon will disappear prematurely, and as for today's test, none of the players passed. Van says they had already completed 3 laps when the accident occurred. Mediugu places a hand on his shoulder and holds a ticket in his other hand. He says that he has a ticket to the dungeon, he will come here again, and next time they will definitely pass the exam. An angry Chi leaves. Finally, he turns and shouts that they have passed. He points to the main character and tells him not to appear here again. They all disintegrate into holograms. Shoe Change, Mediugu, and Van find themselves in the real world at the old place with black bags. Mediugu put his hand to his chin and looks at the corpse. He says that they just went to lose, but when they came out, a dead body appeared here. Shoe Change says that most likely he was raped. Now there are no passengers at all, and this incident must be very serious. They need to go. They will talk about it later. Van clenches his hands into fists and says that thanks to the main character, the ghosts did not break his neck. Mediugu looks away. He peers into the distance. He wonders what the buildings that appeared out of nowhere are for. Shoe Change looks at the system table and says that the hearse driver dungeon has just closed. The system table says, Notification. The dungeon, a test center for hearse drivers, is temporarily closed. For certain reasons, the test props of the dungeon were badly damaged and do not work. The dungeon is being repaired. Opening time. Unknown, we apologize for the inconvenience caused to the affected players. Compensation of 1,000 game coins will be paid. Van rejoices at yet another compensation. Mediugu looks at the table and says that now everyone knows them. His name is published again. Shoe Change alerts them that another notification has arrived. The system table says, Notice the total number of game coins owned by global players has reached 1 million. The trading system is now activated. There are many supermarkets around the world. Players can use game coins to make purchases. Warning. The player is only allowed to enter supermarkets with special permits issued at ticket kiosks. Permits are issued in limited quantities each month. Please pay attention to this rule. Mediugu rubs his chin with a smile and thinks that he can buy things with coins, and that's wonderful. Van looks around nervously. He asks why they can't go there tomorrow, and right now in the middle of the night. Shoe Change and Mediugu leave. The main character says that advertisements are issued every month in limited quantities. Shoe Change says that the facts prove that Mediugu is the only one who cannot wait and gets these permits right at night. There is a girl in a crimson suit standing at the checkout counter. The main character asks for 3 permissions to the supermarket. The girl says that 1 permit costs 50 points for 3 150. She puts 3 tickets and a machine at the cash register. She asks Mediugu to place his hand on the scanning machine and asks how they are going to pay together or separately. The main character takes the ticket and raises his hand to the machine. He says that they will pay together and that the points will be taken from his account. The tickets say, Permission to visit the supermarket. You are allowed to enter the supermarket only with permission. This is a one-time ticket. Effective date, January 2021. The girl says it's better to save a few coins and wait until the end of the month before they go away. She smiles. The girl again says that at the end of the month, there will be a huge crowd at the supermarket and Mediugu would be an easy target. The main character gives tickets to the guys. Van looks around and asks what the woman meant. Shoe Change adjusts his glasses and says that thugs and robbers are everywhere here. This is relevant after the world has turned into chaos. Van shudders and screams. He takes Mediugu's hand and says that a man just passed by. Is he really planning to rob them? He holds a kitchen knife in his hand. The main character asks him to forget about it and suggests going to the supermarket. They stand in front of the store doors with a green light above them. They are greeted by 4 consultants with tight smiles. A guy with brown hair offers to buy a backpack because it costs only 6 coins. Mediugu passes by. A girl with a bob and devil horns offers to buy a blanket for 10 coins. The main character passes by. Van is standing at one of the counters being consulted by 2 sellers. Shoe Change stands to the side and is surrounded by 3 sellers. The main character walks past the counters with his hands in his pockets. He looks at the sign that says mechanical tools. Something catches his attention. A fat guy, a salesman, runs up to him from behind and asks if he needs help. Meryugu points and says that thing looks good. A fat guy with a smile holds a black guitar case in his hands. He says that the main character has an eye for instruments. If he buys now, he will receive a case as a gift. If he puts it in the case, it will look like he is carrying a guitar. The price tags are worth 100. Meryugu says that this is a reasonable price he is buying. Van and Shoe Change approach him. The main character puts a guitar case on his shoulder. Van asks in surprise if he really bought himself a guitar. Meryugu says that this is in case someone wants to rob. Now he doesn't want to fight. Shoe Change adjusts his glasses. He goes up the escalator and says that basic necessities are on the first floor, clothes on the second, food on the third. Van follows him and offers to buy meat. He will cook a good dinner. There are products with price tags on the shelves. Cabbage costs 23 points per 500 grams, rice 50 points per 500 grams, pork 200 points per 500 grams. Van shouts that it is very expensive. A bearded man seller stands in an apron with a machete and smiles. He says it's not their fault. Rare things are sold at high prices. The cost of food has just gone up one level. The main character rolls a grocery cart in front of him. He looks around and says that perhaps this is a way to boost the morale of the player. To play the game, you need to buy something else. Fattier pork costs 100 points per 500 grams. Van, with a sad face, says that rice is cheaper, but it still costs 50 points per 500 grams. He holds a bottle of cola and says that he will grill wings with cola tonight. The main character thinks he is a skilled cook. They put all the products on the checkout. He tells them that for all this, they get 2,050 points. The saleswoman asks if they have enough money. She holds out the device. Meryugu confidently extends his hand. The girl with the horns whispers to the saleswoman that she heard how some player broke into the Hearst dungeon and received 1,000 coins as compensation. The saleswoman says that the players are getting better and better. Only a few days have passed and some players have managed to earn so many coins. Both girls suddenly go into shock. Shoe Change, Meryugu, and Van leave the store. They are standing with shopping bags. In front of them is a crowd of people armed with improvised means. The guy in the orange shirt is holding a can in his hand. He asks with a grin if they really have that much money. He says he offers to give them all the money or they will die. Van fearfully walks behind the main character. Meryugu looks into the guy's eyes with a calm face. The guy turns to him and says that apparently it's not easy to come to an agreement with him. Does he want to know what happened to the last poor guy? The main character does not listen to the guy and takes the guitar case off his shoulder. The guy says that he is a good boy and that now he should give all his things and then they will be allowed to leave. Meryugu smiles. He holds out his hand with the bag. He is holding a chainsaw in his hands. The main character turns her on. Putting it on his shoulder, he asks if they will rob him. He takes the guy by the collar and says that it was very brave of him. Another guy in a white t-shirt shouts that Meryugu is some kind of psycho and they better leave. The guy looks in his direction. The main character smiles madly. He says that it's too late to leave. He demands that you give him everything you have, no matter whether it's valuable or not, otherwise he will cut off their heads. The frightened guy shouts to calm down. They are all civilized people. Everything can be settled through negotiations. Meryugu tells the guy to add him as a friend and let him see how many coins he has. He dictates his number. The guy quickly finds his account and adds him as a friend. The spreadsheet says, System message 38 points. The main character kicks the guy in the back. He says he calls himself a boss even though he only has 38 points and can't even afford a ticket to the supermarket. The guy runs away. Van asks Meryugu if he will really let him leave in case he wants revenge and comes back. The main character asks him if he knows how to harvest Chinese green onions. He smiles and places a hand on his shoulder. Mediugu says that when harvesting these vegetables, one should leave the small roots intact and then harvest some more during the next growing season. The three guys return home. The main character says that everything was fine, but this stupid game appeared. New players are afraid to leave their homes. Van turns his attention to the girl with the pipe in front of them. A girl with pink hair dressed in Chinese clothes smokes a pipe. Mediugu says that this is Rubai Lila, his landlord. Van says Rubai Lila is a gorgeous woman. From the memories of the main character, Rubai Lila turns off the stove and says that the things in her house are more practical and useful. Mediugu says that she is as beautiful as she is dangerous. If he does not want to die, he needs to stay away from her. Van is surprised. Is she really that dangerous? The guys put food on the table. Van addresses the main character. He says that you have some thoughts about him. Van twists his hands and says that a certain Master Chiju once said that if there is a chubby friend named Van, an indifferent gentleman with glasses, chance encounters with beautiful actresses, an attractive landlady and parents who mysteriously died then. He points his finger at Mediugu and shouts that he must be the legendary protagonist of the story. Mediugu tells him to stop talking nonsense. The Chiju he's talking about will haunt his dreams. He looks sharply at the spreadsheet and says something new has come up. The system table says, Lantern Festival Gathering Mainline. Description: the first global event, Lantern Festival, is coming. Venue: Hengdian World Studios. Time: 7 p.m. to 12 p.m. February 26, 2021. Rewards: Game Coins 2. Event description: the main gathering of the Lantern Festival. The blessings of ghosts will be hung throughout the Hadian region in the form of lanterns, to which are attached riddles provided to the ghosts. Players who successfully solve them will receive lanterns and be blessed. There are many ways to get blessings, including having rare and special items, game points, or evil ghost vibrations and indestructible bad luck. Please be careful when choosing a lantern and make sure to avoid any potential danger. Requirements: during the event, the Hadian area will be closed. Only those with tickets from the kiosks will be able to enter. Shu Change adjusts his glasses and says that this is to allow the members to compete with each other. Mediugu says that attending events is the easiest way to improve his strength. To ensure their safety and food quality, it is better not to miss events. Van grabs a plate of chicken. He asks the main character to take her with him. Mediugu says that of course he will take it first. He needs to go through a few more dungeons. He thinks that he needs to earn more money and buy this thing. The next day, there are broken cars on the road. Someone is looking for Mediugu. Van asks Shu Change where is the main character. Shu Change stands on the balcony and looks down. He says that Mediugu is probably making money. The main character stands in the middle of some room with his arms crossed. He says the dungeon rewards have been increased by more than one level. Is this really a 5-player dungeon? The spreadsheet says contents. The main killing curse. Did you feel like someone was watching you? Did you hear any sounds from under the bed? Did you feel like someone was standing behind you? You have been cursed by devilish spirits. Try your best to survive the curse. Please remember that it will continue to approach you. Number of players 5. Difficulty level 4 out of 5 stars. Completion requirements: survive 10 days in the dungeon. Rewards: 100 game coins, 1 lucky draw, 2 points to add to features. He says that there is no one here except him and the mosaic. The main character moves to another room. He says that the dungeon looks like the one in the movie, The Ring, and the players are cursed from the start, and it will continue to get closer and closer to the players. The phone on the table rang. Mediugu turned around. He picks up the phone and puts it to his ear. The question comes from the phone, is this Mediugu? The main character replies that it is him. The main character holds a notepad in his hand. He asks Hanks Ewan if this is it. On the notepad it is written, Hanks Ewan 14,423, Molly Lynn 14,321, Golden Wing 6,553, Hannah 18,641. Hanks Ewan replies that this one is probably Mediugu who received the phone book. He just told the rest of his teammates about meeting at a certain place. Is there any notable building near him? The main character looks out the window. He says there is only a sculpture there. Hanks Yuan says that then they will meet near the sculpture. Medyu goes to her. 4 other players are already waiting for him. The main character welcomes them all. A guy with green hair in a white shirt says his name is Hanks Yuan. He points to a girl with glasses and long pink hair. Hanks Yuan says her name is Molly Lin and she is a college student. The fat guy in the blue jacket says he is the Golden Wing. The guy in the green sweater says his name is Kevin and he is a college graduate specializing in Chinese. The main character says that his name is Medyu and he is a doctor and he is holding a guitar because he loves music. Hanks Yuan says that since they exchanged greetings, they can talk about the game. He looks to the side. It seems someone is watching them. They all look in the same direction. The main character says that it is already getting dark. Hanks Yuan rubs his shoulders against the cold. He says that the dungeon is connected with curses. They will find themselves in a situation similar to the plot of The Filter, The Call. Golden Wing asks if their mission is to catch the ghost. Hanks Yuan tells him that they can't kill the ghost, so they will solve the problem by dealing with the curse. Today they will stay home and see what happens. Kevin says that they were given 10 days to play and the first day will not be dangerous. The players gathered in a circle and decided that, due to the fact that there was no friend system in the dungeon and no mobile phones, they would use a landline phone to call each other if necessary. A growl is heard from behind the door. The TV screen shows a screaming dark-haired girl. Medyu stands closely looking at the TV and eating popcorn. He looks closer and closer. The main character asks why the video froze. There is a knock at the door. He turns sharply in her direction. He comes up and asks who is there. Medyu looks through the door peephole. The door is empty. The knocking stops and silence sets in. The main character walks away, rubbing the back of his head. He says that there is no one there and he needs to find a flashlight. He walks past the TV with his hand on his belt. The girl from the TV looks after him. Medyu is squatting. He holds a flashlight in his hand and looks at the door. Someone knocks on it again. The main character brings a chair to the door. He stands on it. With a terrifying smile, he says that now he will see who is knocking on the door. He illuminates his face with a flashlight. It got dark outside. Lights are on in some windows of multi-story buildings. Hanks Yuan slams the door. He stands in a room with a bed and sweat flows from his forehead. He says that when the door is open, it seems to him that there is someone in the dark. The phone in his room rang. He jumped in fright. He says he was almost scared to death. Hanks Yuan is sitting on the bed under the blanket. He picks up the phone. Molly Lin called him. Molly Lin says she's scared and has to whisper. Hanks Yuan excitedly asks what happened. Molly Lin replies that it seems like there is someone under her bed. She heard a rustling sound as if someone was rubbing on the floor. She sits under the blanket, tears welling up in her eyes. She says she's afraid to look down. Hanks Yuan tells her not to worry, he is with her, let her quickly and quietly look down, everything will be fine. She decides to watch without getting out of bed. Molly Lin holds the phone in her hand and carefully looks down the bed. Her eyes open wide in horror. She screams loudly. Hanks Yuan moves the phone away due to screaming. In fear, he looks at the phone receiver. The connection is interrupted. He shouts Molly Lin's name into the phone several times. In the darkness, the eye glows and a rustling sound is heard. Hanks Yuan turns towards the noise, but there is no one there anymore. He hopes that everything is not so bad and tries to calm himself down. He dials a number on the phone. Raising the phone to his ear, he says that he needs to call the others and ask if they have any problems. The operator's voice comes from the phone and says that the line is busy. Hanks Yuan is scared because he can't get through to the other player. He decides to call Medyu and dials his number. The main character picks up the phone and greets Hanks Yuan. Hanks Yuan screams how glad he is that the main character is okay. There is a crackling sound from the phone. Hanks Yuan asks if Medyu, Xuanyi with the nickname Golden Wing, called. He tried to contact him, but the line was busy. The main character replies that he didn't talk to him and perhaps a ghost contacted him. There is a rustling sound on the phone. Hanks Yuen asks what all the noise is going on there. Meryugu stands over the ghost of a girl in white robes. He holds the phone in one hand and says that the ghost from the movie, The Ring, just crawled out of the TV to him. The ghost lies on the floor and screams. Shocked by what he heard, Hanks Yuen takes the phone out of his hands. He thinks about how half the team was in danger on the first day. Xuanyi stands and trembles. He raised the phone to his ear and asked who was calling him. A voice comes from the phone telling him not to hang up, otherwise he will die. Loud laughter comes from the phone. Xuanyi began to sweat. The voice on the phone says he's downstairs. Xuanyi comes over and looks out the window. There is a black silhouette standing on the street, looking at him. Tears appeared at the corners of his eyes. A voice from the phone is counting down. The phone touches the floor. The voice says that he is already at Xuanyi's room. He says that he is already right behind him. Behind Xuan, Yi is a ghost with a terrifying smile. Xuanyi winces in fear and screams. In the morning, Meryugu does while sitting in bed. He says that he still managed to sleep. There is a knock at the door. The main character looks at her with irritation. He gets out of bed and quickly walks towards the door. In his hand, he holds a guitar case. He says that this time he will definitely catch the ghost. Angrily, he shouts that he will tear the ghost into pieces. Meryugu opens the door. Kevin and Hanks Yuen stand in front of him. Hanks Yuen says that he is glad to see that the main character is okay. At night, the connection was lost, and he thought. Meryugu interrupts him and asks why weren't they supposed to gather at the statue at 8 a.m. He scratches the back of his head. Worried, Hanks Yuen says he couldn't get through to Xuanyi and Molly Lin in the morning. Kevin came to him and said he felt like he was being followed. He had the same feeling. The main character looks out the window and says that Xuanyi and Molly Lin were most likely killed by a ghost during the night. For example, he comes to the exit and says that we need to quickly find out what happened. Sit on the roof of the building and croak. Meryugu, Kevin, and Hanks Yuen are walking down the corridor. Rats are running around the floor. Hanks Yuen grabs the door handle. He opens the door and asks if Xuanyi is there. The players continue down the corridor. They pass by a door from which noise is heard. Hanks Yuen swings the door open. Xuanyi lies dead on the floor. A telephone wire is wrapped around his neck. Meryugu comes closer to him. Hanks Yuen asks if he's really dead. Kevin leans against the wall. He's feeling sick. The main character smears the wire from the neck of a corpse. Hanks Yuen asks what he is doing. Meryugu says that since Hanks Yuen couldn't reach him on the phone, could he talk to a ghost on the phone? Kevin is scared. He smiles awkwardly and says that dying in the game, a person remains alive in real life, but it still looks scary. They must find a way to finish the game as quickly as possible. Hanks Yuen suggests going to Molly Lin's room. Maybe she's dead too. The phone on the table rang. Kevin and Hanks Yuen jumped in surprise. Kevin asks who called. The main character picks up the phone. Molly Lin's voice is heard. She is sitting on the bed. There are rustling noises in the room. Hanks Yuen is happy that she is still alive and asks what happened that night. Molly Lin says she saw a hand under the bed. She was scared. She dropped her phone on the floor but didn't dare pick it up yet. She was scared and asked them to come. Hanks Yuen reaches out to the phone and says that they will come now and that she should not be afraid of anything. Molly Lin starts screaming that the thing under the bed is starting to move and that they should quickly run to it. Evil laughter comes from the phone. Hanks Yuen is scared. Meryugu tells Molly Lin to be good. He will come now. The ghost looks at the floor. The main character goes to the door. Hanks Yuen shouts that if he goes there, he will doom himself to death because there is a ghost in Molly Lin's room. Kevin says it's a creepy ghost and they better find a safe place and hide. Meryugu smirks. He adjusts the strap of his guitar case. The main character says that he likes cruel ghosts and wants to try out new weapons. Kevin looks at Hanks Yuen. He just shrugs. The wind is blowing outside. Meryugu, Kevin, and Hanks Yuen approach the doors of a multi-story building. Kevin says what the main character would have thought before going there. Meryugu opens the door with his foot. Molly Lin is sitting on the bed with her back to them. She chuckles quietly. Suddenly, she says that he has arrived. She laughs loudly and turns her head towards the players. Her face became terrifying and took on the appearance of a ghost. Meryugu is annoyed. He clicks his tongue. The main character takes the guitar case off his shoulder. He stretches it. The main character places a blue chainsaw on his shoulder. Kevin and Hanks Ewan are scared and surprised at the same time. Hanks Ewan says he thought the main character was just a doctor who loves music. Kevin says that he doesn't know who is more frightening now, the ghost or the main character. Meryugu holds the chainsaw in front of him and invites the ghost to dance. Heartbreaking screams are heard outside the door. Frightened Kevin points to the floor. There lies the mutilated corpse of Molly Lin, who turned into a ghost. Kevin covers his mouth with his hand. He says that if Molly Lin is dead, then the man is on the bed. He falls silent. The bed is empty. Strange sounds are heard from under the bed. Hanks Ewan asks, "What are those sounds?" A ghost with burning limbs slithers over the doorway. Kevin and Hanks Ewan look up. The ghost looks at them intently and smiles. The whole room bursts into flames. Hanks Ewan covers his face with his hands. He asks where the fire came from there. The fire is getting hotter. It covers the entire Hanks Ewan coughs from the smoke and covers his mouth. He says that this is not Molly Lin's room, and where did Meryugu and Kevin go? Behind him, Kevin shouts that he is nearby. There are tears in the corners of his eyes. He leans on a huge stone next to him. He says something fell on his leg. Hanks Ewan approaches him. He places Kevin's hand on his shoulder and asks if he has seen the main character. Kevin replies that he hasn't seen it. He asks why everything caught fire and where they are. Hanks Ewan says that perhaps a ghost died there as a human, and this place is the source of the curse. In the fire, a green light is emitted from a pile of stones. The ghost stretched his neck, he crawls along the floor, and his body burns with green fire. The ghost's joints crack. Hanks Ewan and Kevin look ahead. The ghost heads towards them. In a panic, Kevin shouts what he is going to do. Hanks Ewan replies that he doesn't know, but he'd rather be burned alive than fall into the hands of a ghost. The ghost laughs. Her purple hair is wrapped around Kevin and Hanks Ewan. The ghost reaches out his hands to them. She laughs loudly and shouts that she caught them. Hanks Ewan covers his head with his hand. He thinks they are going to die. He opens one eye and looks. Meryugu pressed the head to the floor. He looks at the guys and apologizes for the delay. Kevin and Hanks Ewan watch on the floor. Meryugu continues to hold the ghost's head and tells her to clean the blood from her hands and become human again. Kevin thinks that the main character is trying to persuade the ghost. The ghost clenches his teeth and says that he will kill everyone. The ghost begins to raise its head. Meryugu is holding a chainsaw, turns her on, and says that a ghost belongs in hell. With a grin, he says that he hopes that she will rest in peace. He lures with a chainsaw. Kevin says that the main character is a superhero who defeated the ghost only with his strength. Notifications are coming from the system. The messages say that the source of the dungeon curse has been eliminated. Data analysis is set to default, but the curse source restart failed. The game cannot run normally. All players in the dungeon will be sent back within 10 seconds. The dungeon begins to fall apart. Kevin assumes that Meryugu destroyed the main NPC. The system begins the countdown. The main character scratches his head. He says there is no sign this time. Meryugu is standing on the street in the real world. There are corpses of people on the ground. Next to him is a child. He says that death in the game does not affect real life, but the real world is becoming more and more like hell. On the system table, he presses a key. The key says press to test. The system signs say that the fatal curse, the dungeon has been stopped due to special circumstances. After the destruction of the only source of the curse, the dungeon can no longer operate normally. It will go through a long recovery process. They apologize for the inconvenience. The affected players will automatically complete the dungeon. They will also be compensated 1,000 points. Players receiving compensation: Meryugu, Hanks Ewan, Kevin. Rewards for completing the dungeon: game coins 100, lottery 1. Special points 2. Meryugu looks at the tables. He says that winning 100 points is wonderful. Then he presses the key that says lottery. The system table says that he won the old wire. It can support the user walking in a certain direction, however, after aging it may break at any time. It must be used with extreme caution. Meryugu assumes that something will not break during use. The system table says that a new announcement has appeared stating that the rating system has been activated. The main character reads this announcement with surprise. He presses a key and opens the next advertisement. The system table says that a list of the world's most wanted people has appeared. Number 1 is Meryugu. Reasons for the wanted. Confidential. The player who can catch and kill this person will receive 10,000 game coins, 50 characteristics, and 5 assigned special items. The main character says that life was not friendly to him, but the fact that he is still hated so much is surprising. He calmly closes his eyes and smiles. He is walking along a dark street. The main character says that it probably won't be easy for him. It's morning in the real world. In the office, Meryugu, Shoe Change, and Van are sitting at the same table. Shoe Change asks if the main character has seen the world's most wanted list. Meryugu replies that he needs money. He regrets that he cannot kill himself and collect the reward. Van says the main character is weird. Meryugu opens the system table. On the table is his portrait and a list of those wanted by the world. He asks if he can write an online novel called The World's Most Wanted Man about a man with a heart full of love who destroys the world while being crushed by his unjust life. Shoe Change says it would be better if he were still alive by then. The main character sighs. Shoe Change asks what's going on in his head. Meryugu looks at the ceiling and says that he is thinking about increasing the list. He looks so lonely there and about how to blow up the world. Van says that Meryugu is positive because at such a moment he is still cheerful. The main character says that he is serious. Van jumps in surprise. Shoe Change adjusts his glasses. Meryugu gets up from the table. He says that he needs more points to buy things for the event, so he is going to the dungeon. Do they want to come with him? Van cheerfully raises his hands. He says they will be able to get more compensatory rewards from there. Shoe Change crosses his arms. He says he will go with them. The main character says that he will surpass all the players who are thinking of killing him. He needs to find something useful in the dungeon in order to stay alive. There is a blonde ticket guy standing in the ticket booth. The main character stands at the cash register in front of him. The guy asks if he is Meryugu. The main character says that this is him. He wants to get a group ticket to the dungeon. The guy locks his hands and starts crying. He says that these dungeons are like prostitutes. They choose the type of clients they want to spend time with. Today, the dungeon does not want to deal with them. Meryugu smiles and offers to tell an interesting fact. He says that they are the kind of people who get what they want by forcing others, so let the guy give them tickets quickly. The main character holds the guy by the collar. Out of fright, the guy shouts that he will give the tickets and let Meryugu move away from him. The main character walks away from the ticket office holding tickets in his hand. He thanks for the goods. The guy trembles and looks after him. The system has found the dungeon and assigns teammates. Van says he thought there would only be 3 of them. Meryugu says that the number of players depends on the difficulty of the dungeon. Lanterns and illuminated sign. Shoe Change, Van, and Meryugu stand among the crowd of other players. In front of them is a round stage on which the presenter stands. The spreadsheet says they are in a Crazy Riddles dungeon, number of players 15, difficulty level 3 stars. The main character thinks that the introductory page is short and concise and says nothing about missions and prizes. The presenter claps his hands. He welcomes all players. The players pay attention to him. The presenter brings the microphone to his mouth. He says that he is the registrar of the game. Now he will tell you the rules. He says the name of the dungeon implies a riddle game. He points his hand towards the iron cages. The game registrar says that first 15 people will be divided into 5 teams of 3 people. The answerer must enter the cell. A word or phrase will appear on the whiteboard in the cell that the guesser must figure out. The player outside must stand behind the warning line and try to convey the meaning with using gestures. He puts his index finger to his lips and says that uses sounds, lip reading, and writing. The respondent must not look at the whiteboard of the crook and his team. The presenter waves his palm across his throat. Van says it's like posing and guessing. Shoe Change says it won't be easy. The presenter smiles. He again says that the most interesting thing about this game is that the teams compete with each other. Each round is divided into 10 minutes for the team. The one who solves the least number of riddles will open the door at the back of the cage and the answerer will be punished. A monster girl with a terrifying smile is holding onto the bars of the cage. The presenter says that if the responder dies or loses the opportunity to play, then the team is considered a loss. Van and several other players are scared. The presenter extends his hand towards the players. He says that each member of the winning team will be able to take a valuable item, the reward of the answerer will be doubled, and they will be divided into groups. Mediugu says that he, Shoe Change, and Van are on the same team. Shoe Change adjusts his glasses. Van tries to be confident. The remaining 9 people also divided into teams. Van asks who will be in charge. The main character goes into a cage. Van was speechless. Mediugu finally turns around and says that the person in charge should be the brave Dr. Mediugu. The host opens the system table to find out who Mediugu is. He opens his eyes wide in shock. He says that the rest of the players need to be careful, and after this, he will have to take a long vacation. The main character is behind bars. Some players say that if they could kill him, they would receive 10,000 game coins. The presenter waves his hand. He tells the other teams to hurry up and choose the answerers. A man in a light coat smiles. He enters the cage next to Mediugu. The man waves his hand at the main character. He says his name is Wu Chanky 257. The main character says he is self-confident. The countdown begins. There is one person in each cell. The presenter says that the watch will help you not to lose track of time. The host says that this is also a valuable and rare special item. A large clock appeared next to him. He announces the start of the game. The timer on the clock is 10 minutes. Mediugu thinks about what word he will come across. Van is scared. He cups his cheeks with his hands in horror. The main character asks how many words there are. Van shows 4 on his fingers. Mediugu thinks that this is some kind of stable phrase. Van stretches his cheeks in different directions, creating a smile. The main character tries to understand what he is showing him, but he fails. He smiles confidently with his hand on his chin. The remaining responding players panic. The clock says 05:32. The presenter says that half the time is almost up, but none of the guessers are close to the correct answer. If the players fail, the doors of the cells will open, and this applies to everyone. Voyu Chenki shouts that the hidden word is a conspiracy. Mediugu looks at him. The presenter says that he guessed the correct answer of his team. The blonde guy with a red bow tie from the Voyu Chenki team is happy. Shoe Change points to himself. Mediugu begins to think that the answer has to do with him being small. The main character remembers little Shoe Change in a blue dress. He asks if this is the Mona Lisa. The presenter says that their team also guessed right. Van admires the main character because he guessed right quickly. Mediugu grits his teeth and wonders if these riddles could get even harder. The clock says 02:58. The host says that Mediugu and Wu Chanki solved the riddles. The remaining teams did not move forward. In 3 minutes, the first round will end. The main character tells his teammates to keep moving. Shoe Change and Van froze. They look at the whiteboard. Shoe Change shows a negative sign with his hands. Van shows 7 fingers. A girl with glasses standing in a cage says that her answer is the border of 2 opposing powers. The time on the clock is 02:26. The guy in the cage shouts, "Get up with the roosters." The guy in the orange cage gives the answer, "Put yourself in someone else's shoes." The presenter smiles. He says that the teams that left behind gave the correct answers and caught up with the rest. Now all the teams are at the same level. The countdown begins. The ghost in the cage holds tightly to the iron bars and smiles. Van gritted his teeth. Shoe Change puts his hand in front of him. Mediugu smiles. 2 seconds left. The presenter smiles. The main character shouts that we are talking about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. At the same time, Voyu Tianqi shouts the word kaleidoscope. They look into each other's eyes. They exchange a few insults. The presenter waves his hand to the side. He says that this is a wonderful game. Metayu and Voyu Tianqi defeated groups 1, 2, and 3 at the last second. Let the guessers from the losing groups get ready. The doors of the cells behind them will open soon. Losing players hold tightly to the bars of the cage. One of the guys shouts that he doesn't want to be expelled. He holds onto the cage with both hands. Tears appeared in his eyes. Frightened, he turns back. From the darkness, the huge hands of a ghost grab him and pull him towards him. The guy screams loudly. He tries to grab the floor. His cage is spattered with blood. The presenter tilts his head to the side. He waves his index finger and says that it's a surprise to him because not one of the 3 losers survived the first round. He offers to fight honestly without nasty tricks. He narrows his eyes and smiles widely. He then says that if the refuser dies, his entire team will be eliminated. Voyu Tianqi says that he wanted to drag the main character down with the rest of the guys, but did not expect that Metayu would decide to do so. Maybe they could become friends, and then he would allow him to win the second round. Metayu smiles confidently with his hands in his pockets. He says that most likely Voyu Tianqi does not want to make friends, but to find out his location in the real world in order to find a kill and win a big prize. He looks at him and asks if he has a dark side. Voyu Tianqi asks that isn't the main character the same. Metayu replies that he can become cunning, but he cannot tolerate such a friend. Voyu Tianqi calls him two-faced and says he will regret it. The presenter says that there is a lot of tension between the teams, the timer is on, and soon everyone will see who wins. Black ribbons called Black Curtain fly into the cage. Ribbon wraps the white table in Metayu checks. The main character is surprised. Voyu Tianqi crossed his arms contentedly. Black Curtain introduction. This is a piece of black curtain that was forgotten on stage after the show ended. The curtain can be used to cover things, but is otherwise useless. Function: it can hide whatever you want. If you really want to go to the toilet, but you can't find it, this curtain will be the ideal solution. The host shouts that Voyu Tianqi has finally figured out the essence of this game. In fact, candidates must think about how to prevent others from winning, and now Metayu has reached a dead end. The main character ponders his every word. He is trying to remove the curtain from the table. Voyu Tianqi says he can't take her out and definitely loses the second round. The presenter smiles. He says that he was interrupted, so he will start over. Metayu shouts for Voyu Tianqi not to rejoice ahead of time. He reaches his hand into his cage. The main character rips the sign from his cage. Voyu Tianqi is shocked. The other players are also at a loss. Metayu hides the board under his doctor's coat. Voyu Tianqi shouts at him that this is against the rules. The main character replies that the board is in the cells, which means the player must pull it out, otherwise it would not have been hung there. The host grins and announces that the timer is on. Voyu Tianqi addresses him. The presenter says that the tiger has reached a dead end, and now even he does not know what is written on the boards. In front of him in the air is a porous clock with a timer. Voyu Tianqi tells Metayu that now none of them can see them, so they will lose the game. He has a proposal. He will lower the curtain and the main character will return the board, and they will play fair. The main character refuses. Voyu Tianqi gets angry and clenches his teeth. He shouts that they will both lose and it won't end well. The presenter stands in front of the cells and announces that there is some time left. Voyu Tianqi says that Metayu is wanted. If he loses, his reputation will suffer and he will be in serious trouble. But he himself will not lose anything if he loses. Metayu looks at him and says that he won't go with him. Voyu Tianqi is surprised. The presenter puts his palm forward and says that there are 5 seconds left. He begins the countdown out loud. Voyu Tianqi thinks why the main character is still calm. Metayu looks at him. The presenter raises his index finger up. He says the second round is over and both players are kicked out. The ghost kicks out of the cage. He is standing right behind Meryugu. There is an eye on one of the palms. The ghost opens its toothy mouth in a smile. She falls to all fours and growls. Voyu Chanki laughs and says that Meryugu will die first and he will see him die. The main character looks down at the ghost of the girl. The ghost looks at him and freezes. She suddenly begins to crawl back. Meryugu says that he has already taken care of his affairs. Voyu Chanki does not understand why the ghost returned. Behind him stands a bald ghost whose body has many stitches. Blood splashes. Finally, Voyu Chanki shouts to the main character that this is not the end. Meryugu takes out a board from under his robe. Voyu Chanki shouts that when she finds him. He falls silent. The main character asks the presenter whether the game ended. The presenter stands in shock. He says that the employee responsible for the fifth cell quit and needed to take care of everything and take the ghosts from other dungeons. He extends his palm towards Van and Shoe Change. The host says that the fourth game of Crazy Riddles is officially over. They are the winning team. Van asks again, is it really the fourth? The presenter snaps his fingers and grins. He says that they are the fourth group of players to attend this game because something has not been held 4 times already. Meryugu looks at him and thinks that if the host remembers that there were 3 more games before them, then the data for this dungeon was not reset. The door to his cage opens. He goes to his comrades. Shoe Change and Van are surprised. The main character does not understand why they have such facial expressions. He turns around and looks at his whiteboard. He wants to see what is written on it. Van scratches his head and says that Trump's name was written, but it was quickly erased so he couldn't read it. Shoe Change adjusts his glasses and says that he didn't see it either. The host calls the guys to pick up their prizes. The responder can receive 2 gifts, the rest 1 each. In addition to items, they can choose everything they found in the game. On the table are a frying pan, a glove, a notebook eraser, a monster figurine, and a piece of paper. The host says that if they want, they can even take the cage, but they can read the description of the item only after leaving the dungeon. Shoe Change picks up what looks like a ticket and says he wants it. Van smiles and says he just wants some coins. Meryugu looks at the figurine, a stone bat whose eyes glow red. She stands on the head of the portal. The host stands by him and says that the players take their things and leave through this door. Then they will again find themselves in the outside world, but they should not take more than they deserve, otherwise the door will take away what you have. It is better to be honest. The players stand in front of the portal. Meryugu asks that they can really take anything. The presenter says that everything they see. The main character comes closer to him and angrily says that he saw the watch. The presenter replies that they are not a reward. Meryugu decides that he has no other choice. He runs quickly. The main character, while running, catches the leader with his hand. He screams and asks him to stop. Meryugu runs into the portal with the leaders on his shoulder. Van wonders if it will work or not. Shoe Change says that if the main character does this, it will work. He smiles and says that they don't need to rush, and they will get consolation prizes. In the real world with a ticket office, the same portal appeared. The blonde guy looks in surprise. Meryugu jumps out of the portal with the leader. The guy can't believe his eyes. He screams, "Is this really the presenter named Green?" Green sits on the ground and holds his top hat. The ticket guy says that unfortunately Green arrived earlier than planned. Green leans against the cash register and asks if he can give it back. The guy says they don't provide channels to return NPS. Can he stay for a while? Meryugu watches from the side. He thinks what the words "arrived earlier than planned" mean. Moreover, after leaving the dungeon, the NPS did not turn into a stream of data and did not disappear. He takes Green by the collar and says that he is his reward, so he cannot leave. Green is scared. He says he will give away his watch. The main character looks at his watch. He says that he could have taken 2 things but only gets 1 watch, but he is a good person and can compromise. Green is very angry. He says that Meryugu will receive a fortune. Archive machine description. This is a high-tech thing in the form of an electronic watch that emits green light. Function: Archive storage. When pressing the green button, the user can save his current life status in hours. When pressing the red button, the user can read the archive and restore the status saved previously. This machine can only be used to record archives once a month. If the saved archive has not been read once within a month, it will be destroyed. If the user dies, the archive stored inside will also be destroyed, so the user will not be able to revive himself by reading the archive. Mediugu smiles contentedly. He says that with this watch, he has a better chance of survival. He holds a watch in his hand. A notification comes from the system that he is not compatible with this item and he needs to stop trying. The main character asks Green that this watch is really a fake. Green is very annoyed. He shouts that he gave away the archive machine and let him leave. Mediugu leaves. A message has arrived from the organizer of the game. Green asks what's the matter. Will he be transferred back to the dungeon? The guy says that this is a game notification and it says that his dungeon is temporarily suspended due to the lack of a maintainer. The spreadsheet says that the Crazy Mysteries dungeon is temporarily out of service for some reason. The GM cannot control the game. The dungeon is currently on maintenance. Opening time is unknown. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to the players. The victims will receive compensation in the amount of 1,000 game coins. List of players awarded compensation. Shoe change, Van. Green opens his eyes and mouth wide. Shoe change, Van and Mediugu stand in front of the supermarket. Shoe change is holding a watch in his hands. He reads their instructions. Mediugu asks that they be kept for him because he cannot use them. They are in the store. Van asks if Mediugu is really going to go to Hengjian at night. Bad things usually happen at night. The main character says that this is true, but they will not be able to drive a car from this supermarket during the day. Not far from them sits a girl in a school uniform putting groceries on the counter. There is a bag of groceries on the floor and a tomato has fallen out of it. A sad salesman with horns on his head is sitting on the floor. He sighs heavily. Mediugu passes by. The seller begins to shout with a smile whether he wants to buy the vehicle. He gestures toward the funeral services black van. Van is surprised that the main character chose a hearse. Shoe change says it's no wonder why he didn't want to go during the day. The seller says that many people consider a hearse to be a vehicle that brings misfortune, but in fact it is convenient. It does not need gasoline or other fuel. By pressing the gas pedal, the car will go quickly. It can even jump. If they do not use this car, it can easily be placed in the inventory. It takes up quite a lot of space. Their property will be safe, however. A driver's license is required to drive. The dungeon for taking the driving test is closed, and now players have no other way to get them. Mediugu puts his hand to his chin and asks how much space this machine takes up. The seller replies that it takes up 3 items from the inventory. The main character says he will take her. The seller thinks that Mediugu has no rights, but he insists on buying the car. He is stupid but rich. The seller stands at the checkout and places an order. A car speeds past him. He raises his head and looks forward. He looks in confusion at the hearse that is leaving the store. Suddenly, he realizes that Mediugu is the one who broke the dungeon. The hearse pulls away from the supermarket. The main character sits behind the wheel. In the front passenger seat of Shoe Change, he is wearing a seat belt. Van sits behind him and holds onto the back of Mediugu's seat. He shouts for the main character to look at the road, and he starts to crash into the car. The hearse is driving at high speed towards the white truck. Van screams. Mediugu pulls the lever and advises you to hold on tight. The hearse bounces over the truck. Van shouts that it seems he will soon go to heaven. The hearse lands on the road. The car jumps on the roofs of high-rise buildings. Van shouts that this car is a flying monster. The sun is setting. The car stopped. Mediugu came out of it. In front of him is a spreadsheet. It says that the event, Lantern Festival, is being held at Hengdian World Studios. Time, from 19:00 on February 26, 2021. Requirements. During the event, the Hengjian area will be locked down. Only those with tickets purchased from a high-level kiosk can visit. The main character says that there are about 20 days left before the event starts, so now it's January 27th, they need to find this kiosk. Shoe Change says the more populated a place is, the more ticket kiosks there are. He offers to stop by the city. Murloc asks Van to remove the car so that he and Shoe Change will be walking around the city. He and Shoe Change go to town. The guys walk past cars along a dark alley. The wind blows. Shoe Change says something is wrong, this place is too quiet, the city seems to be dead. Ahead, the entire city glows green. They keep going. They are gradually enveloped in green fog. Van asks if all the people are dead. Shoe Change adjusts his glasses. He says that most likely people are simply afraid to leave their houses. There is no blood on the street, there are dead bodies and cars are lying neatly. Cars are neatly parked on an empty street. Shoe Change says that someone is watching over this place. Murloc suggests checking out the ticket kiosk. Van shouts that there are people there. There is a crowd of police officers. One of them says that he asked all residents to stay at home. What are they doing there? He puts his hand on his cap. The police come closer to Murloc and his friends. He says that judging by their clothes, they are not local. He is the sheriff of this city. Shoe Change says his name is George and next to him is Van. Murloc stands behind. Shoe Change says they were passing by the city and decided to stop by. Why do the locals refuse to go out? The sheriff becomes tense. He says that it would be better for them not to stay in this city for a long time. Sometimes a special dungeon opens there randomly. Van asks if he is the reason why people leave their homes. The sheriff replies that this is exactly how everyone who played in it died. This policeman lies on the operating table, chained to him with belts. Standing above him is a ghostly spirit in a doctor's coat with blood stains. The ghost's head is tilted to the side, he smiles creepily. The sheriff says with fear that the dungeon is filled with a lot of crazy people. They are very lucky that they didn't stumble upon him. The main character wants to join the conversation. Shoe Change interrupts him. Spreadsheets suddenly appeared in front of him, Murloc and Van. The tables say that a special professional deathmatch dungeon has been launched. Number of players: from 50 to 100, not enough players. Depending on the difficulty level, more players will be accepted into the dungeon. Difficulty level 6 stars. Van says that there will be a lot of people there. Are they all going to be sent to slaughter? Shoe Change says the dungeon's name suggests a certain connection to slaughter. He looks at the table and says that it says about the restricted area. They will probably play there. Murloc reads the description. It says that this is a super industrial world with poorly developed medicine. A world where the upper and lower classes are clearly separated and subject to a strict hierarchy. According to the Upper Class Protection Protocol, any members of the lower class who provoke, insult, or bully members of the upper class will be arrested and thrown in groups into the Forbidden Zone task to obtain Golden Amber Redemption. Reward: players who complete the task will receive qualifications for a specific profession. The main character believes that they will not be made into the upper class. The players have been selected. The total number is 59. They will soon reach the Death Game dungeon. You just need to wait a little. Murloc lights his eyes and says that it is already starting. He sits chained to a chair. There is a crowd of people nearby who are also chained. They are all in a holographic cube. Next to the main character sits a dark American guy with curls. Murloc realizes that he cannot move. He looks at the guy and thinks that this is probably an NPC because he doesn't see information about the player. There is a man in a purple shirt with long pink hair standing in the corridor. He says that apparently they are players. The man smiles and says that he is a murderous professor. They are all lower class sinners. The black man opens his mouth and eyes in horror. The killer professor leans close to his face and says with a smile that it reduces crime among the lower class to the point where black men break out in sweat. With tears, he screams that he doesn't want this. The murderous professor smiles and says that the man has a great expression and that he should continue to entertain the audience. A short-haired man with a scar over his eye is holding a box in his hands. He smiles and says the cameras are ready. Next to him stands another man, also with short hair, a small beard, and he is grinning. Mechanical balls on wings with a built-in camera fly out of the box. These are mini cameras with a paranormal object. They are able to shoot 360 degrees and show everything that every player sees. The killer professor smiles and says that they are approaching the Forbidden Zone, and he is glad that they will part soon. Many cameras fly towards the city, which is covered with green fog. The killer professor wishes you luck. Meryugu sits on a chair and he rubs his wrists. He doesn't understand what's happening. He and several other players are thrown out of the room along with their chairs. The others sitting are very scared. The main character holds tightly to the chair while in the air. He falls to the ground and lands on all fours. He gets to his feet. His whole body is covered in bruises. Meryugu rubs his neck. He says that this is a rather cruel way of separating players. The main character looks directly at the camera. The killer professor sees this. He sits on a chair in an office that is completely filled with screens from cameras. The killer professor smiles. He says that the main character looks quite calm. In the past, there are the same players after all. He interrupts his sentence and again says that we need to see what Meryugu will do. The main character walks along an empty street. The moon is shining in the sky. There is a wooden sign hanging. It says that this place is a mining town, the largest coal mine in the world. It is literally the kingdom of coal. Immediately below the text is a map of the city. Meryugu says this is a huge place. An accident could happen at any time. He needs to find a weapon. He wonders where Shoe Change and Van are. Van is very scared. A girl in a pink jacket sits not far from him. Her ID is written above her. Her name is Frozen Love. She wrapped her arms around her knees. The door opens, and the room is attacked by a beam of light. A ghost in a doctor's coat stands in the doorway. Van looks behind him in fear.